Conquest manual in another world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Beginning. 2022, Night. Blue Star Shenzhen, a commercial street in Puxi. Inside an ordinary milk tea shop. The air-conditioned environment of 24 degrees is definitely not hot, but there are still fine beads of sweat, which keep sliding down Wu Fan's temples. The clenched fists and solemn expression all show that this young man in his early 20s is in a state of high alert. The reason is simple. Just over 10 minutes ago, Wu Fan was pulling down the roller shutter to close the store. When he turned around, he saw a large aperture quietly emerging from the operating table. The aperture floated strangely in the air, emitting a faint blue light. It looked like it was about 1 meter in diameter. Not far from the aperture was the table that Wu Fan had bought himself. It was a 1.3 x 0.5 rectangular. The diameter of the aperture was just about the same as the length of the table, about 1 meter and less than 1.5 meters. Wu Fan knew very well that there was absolutely no thing or condition in his store that could produce such an aperture. The phone was in his pocket, the shutter had just been drawn, so no light from outside could come in, and the only light source in the store was the ceiling lamp. After Wu Fan turned off the light, he could still see the aperture floating slowly. There was no doubt that Wu Fan had encountered an abnormal event. As a fan of online literature with more than 10 years of reading experience, Wu Fan quickly accepted this fact. But he was at a loss as to what to do next. Should he take the initiative to contact the authorities? Or should he cover up the matter secretly and take one step at a time? Reason told Wu Fan that reporting the facts was the best and most appropriate approach. However, as an ordinary person who had been ordinary for 26 years, Wu Fan had another flame in his heart, which was swaying tenaciously in the storm of reason. What if this aperture was an opportunity? What good things could this aperture bring? Bang, bang, bang. Just as Wu Fan was struggling with his inner struggle, a knocking sound suddenly came from outside the shutter that had been drawn. The unique material of the rolling door made a sound like waves, and along with the clattering sound, there was also a male voice. "Hello, is anyone in the store? I'm not calling hello, my name is Yongli Gemini." Less than half a second after a dirty word popped up in his mind subconsciously, Wu Fan's whole body suddenly shuddered, as if he had been electrocuted. A drop of sweat, bigger and faster than before, slid down Wu Fan's forehead, slowed down under the buffer of the beard on his chin, and finally seeped into his collar. Who? Wu Fan gritted his teeth and forced himself to sound more normal. "It's closed. Come back tomorrow, maybe it's an old customer," Wu Fan comforted himself. However, before the dopamine produced by self-comfort began to transmit nerves, the other party's reply almost made Wu Fan's heart and lungs stop. "I'm from the police station patrol. Master, please open the door." People in Shanghai usually call people they don't know master. Xiao Yi is 28 years old this year, a native of Shanghai. After graduating from the police academy, he was assigned to work at the Huaihai police station. This year is his 5th year wearing a police badge. As a super-large international city, Shanghai has a permanent population of more than 20 million. But its crime rate is the lowest among cities of the same level in the world. This is naturally inseparable from the efforts and even sacrifices of grassroots police officers like Xiao Yi. Although the jurisdiction of the Huaihai police station is not large, it has a number of commercial blocks and historical buildings under its jurisdiction, so the patrol strength of the police station is still not small. Of course, the patrol equipment is relatively advanced. The standard patrol team in the Huaihai Road area is 6 people per team. The street where Wu Fan's milk tea shop is located at the intersection of the commercial street, the second cancer hospital, and the Shanghai elevated exit. The geographical location is relatively complex and important, so it is listed as one of the fixed long-term patrol points. Today, Xiao Yi and his friends were conducting routine patrols. As usual, there were no major incidents in the entire area, but there were a few sporadic trivial matters. Auntie complained about stray cats in the community. Someone illegally parked a shared bicycle on the pedestrian street, and a foreign truck asked for directions at the elevated exit, etc. After patrolling for most of the circle, the young man stretched leisurely, yawn a little boring. This young man is called Zheng Yuan, who just graduated from the police academy this year and has a slightly erratic personality. The aura of a standard academic school has not yet completely faded, and he is the youngest junior in the entire patrol team. It's good to be bored, because it means society is stable. Another older patrolman in the team smiled, unscrewed the water bottle he brought with him and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Finally, he let out a hearty "ha," and drank the boiled water with the momentum of Liangshan heroes. If one day even a patrol team like us has to work hard, that would be a bad thing. That's right, I was just talking casually. Zhang Yuan chuckled twice and changed the subject. By the way, did you hear that a group of pirated brand name bags was busted in Pudong yesterday? There were a lot of high-end imitation Prada and Hermes bags, worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions, enough to be sentenced to some punishment? Hey, what is that? Xiao Yu was listening with relish with his head tilted to the side. When he heard the second half of Zhang Yuan's sentence, he subconsciously turned his head in the direction he said. After seeing the situation clearly, he grinned. Oh, what's going on? A few dozen meters away from Xiao Yi and the others, above a shop whose name could not be seen clearly at night, a not very wide but extremely bright beam of light shot straight into the sky, which was particularly dazzling in the dark. As a super-large city, one of the most famous landscapes in Shanghai is the Bund Light Show. Every night, many high-rise buildings in Pudong will light up outside the building, spreading out an extremely spectacular night view of lights. However, this does not mean that anyone can project high-intensity lights at will in Shanghai. In fact, Shanghai's control over light is actually very strict. Large searchlight facilities must be reported before use, and the use of long-range searchlights is prohibited in the city after 11 o'clock, except New Year's Eve. After all, light pollution is also one of the real livelihood issues these days. The Bund Light Show, which represents the image of Shanghai, cannot cross the line, let alone the Huaihai commercial district. So when Xiao Yi saw someone illegally using high-intensity lights, he had to stop them out of duty. That's when Wu Fan heard the knock on the door. After introducing himself, Xiao Yi stood there waiting. About half a minute later, with a clattering sound, the shutter door was pulled up about 2/3 of the height, revealing Wu Fan's face in the store. In fact, until this time, Xiao Yi did not link this matter with an abnormal event. He straightened his chest to ensure that the law enforcement recorder on his chest could cover the situation in front of him. Hello, Master, we are from the patrol team of Huaihai Police Station. What's the matter with the light outside your store? Do you know that strong light is prohibited in the city after 11 o'clock? Wu Fan, who originally thought he could not escape and planned to take the initiative to tell everything, was stunned. Master, don't be nervous, we won't fine you. Xiao Yi smiled. He misunderstood Wu Fan's expression as temporary silence caused by fear, and then he looked into the store. Is the machine in the back? Just turn it off, and be more careful next time. Then the next second, Xiao Yi's smile froze. He pointed at the light circle floating in the house, which was constantly emitting various tiny mysterious symbols, and asked with a question mark on his face, "Oh my god, what the hell is this?" Chapter 2 Emergency Plan. Hearing Xiao Yi's exclamation, the other patrolmen looked at each other and went forward to check the situation. After speaking in a dialect with different tones but roughly guessing the meaning, they turned their eyes to Wu Fan at the same time. Seeing this, Wu Fan, who had already drooped his eyebrows, looked even more bitter. Fortunately, he had anticipated this scene before opening the door, and forced himself to suppress the gratitude to God that was about to burst out of his mouth. Wu Fan sighed quietly and recounted the situation when the aperture appeared as if resigned to his fate. About half an hour ago, I just pulled down the roller shutter and was about to close the store, and when I turned around, I saw this thing quietly appeared next to the operating table, and then you came over not long after. Xiao Yi looked at him. Is it that simple? Yeah, that's all. In fact, I don't understand what happened. Xiao Yi was silent for a while and winked at Zheng Yuan. Okay, I'll go to the store and take a look. Xiao Zheng, you stay with this comrade for a while. Zheng Yuan nodded, took Wu Fan out, and showed him the strong light outside his shop that was shooting straight into the sky. Did you see it? This beam of light is the reason we are looking for you. It's as bright as Tiga's transformation. Just now on the street, I saw 2 kids holding transformation sticks and singing Miracle Reappears. Wu Fan. Then Zheng Yuan looked at the bitter-faced man suspiciously and asked, this thing was really not made by you? Being able to get a business license and open a store means that you are at least an adult and should be able to understand the seriousness of this matter. I can tell you clearly that this has exceeded the nature of reporting a false alarm. Now I will give you another chance. Are you sure this has nothing to do with you? Wu Fan had a sad face and raised his hand to swear. Officer, I really didn't do this, I promise. I'm just an ordinary citizen. I don't usually shoot any TikTok or WeChat videos. How could I play with the official website for fun? Cao made a simple search in the house and happened to hear this conversation when he walked out with his hands behind his back. He nodded and said to Zheng Yuan, it shouldn't be a prank. I checked it once. There are no traces of projection in the room. I have tried turning off the power switch to block the light source. The aperture is not affected. Then Cao called out and signaled the members of the patrol team to move closer to him. I have reported this matter. Let's not go anywhere now. Just stay here and wait for the superiors to come to hand over. By the way, give me your mobile phones first. Be prepared. There may be some big battles. This is not a small matter, Zheng Yuan said and muttered while taking out his mobile phone. Is it confidentiality regulations? Well, look at my mouth. I just said that I was too idle and nothing to do. Now it's good. It's really a big deal. Several other team members also chattered a few words, but they all handed their mobile phones to Cao as required. Although it is not clear what happened in detail. But whether it is the basic judgment of adults or the institutional cognition of long-term frontline work, they are all telling them one thing. They may have come into contact with something that cannot be said, and at this time, just wait for instructions. Compared with the team members who knew nothing and could only rely on guessing, Cao's mood at this moment is heavier. Even his hands are trembling faintly. There is something he has never said, which is the direct reason why he quickly reported the news when checking the aperture. Cao tried to throw a coin into the circle, but the coin did not fall to the ground after passing through the aperture, but passed through the aperture and disappeared. There is no doubt that this is a major event that is destined to be heard by the heavens. Looking at his still shaking hands, he looked up at the beam of light that went straight into the sky. Cao's eyes were a little confused. This beam of light has pierced the sky. Tonight is destined to be an extraordinary night. The Shanghai Public Security Information Comprehensive Processing Center is the core center responsible for dispatching and handling various public security incidents. The highly informational incident response process makes its response speed the best in the country. But such a super central brain, after receiving a message, went down for a short while. What did you say? In an office of the Information Integrated Processing Center, Chang Qixiang, director of the General Office, looked at his secretary Feng Hu with surprise. Where did the news come from? The instructor of the Huaihe police station reported the red emergency notice through the internal line. This is the picture taken by the portable recorder of Comrade Cao, and the technical department exported it through the image terminal. Feng Hu handed a tablet to Chang Qixiang, and the action of holding the two corners of the tablet with both hands vaguely revealed that the secretary's heart was not calm. Chang Qixiang took the tablet and clicked the play button. The video was not long, and the picture was even a little unstable at the beginning. This was because Cao leaned forward to check the light source and the switch, causing the camera to shake. Chang Qixiang, who suffered from 3D vertigo, did not say anything, but endured the discomfort and watched it. After Cao checked the surrounding environment, the camera was aimed at the floating aperture again. Cao could be heard vaguely complaining, "What the hell is this?" and then a 1 yuan coin appeared in the video. Cao, who had already realized that something was wrong, shook the coin in front of the camera to ensure that his movements could be fully recorded by the instrument. Then Cao gently threw the coin into the aperture. The coin flipped several circles in the air, drew an arc and fell into the aperture, and finally disappeared. Looking at the coin disappearing in the circle, Chang Qixiang's breathing suddenly became a little faster. 4 minutes ago, the director and instructor of the Huaihe police station arrived at the scene and confirmed that the situation was true. Feng Hu added, Chang Qixiang is worthy of being the person qualified for the position of director of the general office. After the initial surprise, he gave instructions in a very short time. Share the video with the Special Emergency Response Team of the Imperial Capital Information Comprehensive Office immediately, and send it in encrypted form. You do it yourself. All the people in the processing center will stay to work overtime tonight. You use the internal phone to notify Wang Chuming that emergency traffic control will be activated near the Huaihe Commercial District. The control range is 1 kilometer, no, 2 kilometers. Don't say anything else, just do it quickly. Feng Hu nodded quickly and said solemnly, understood, I'll arrange it right away. After Feng Hu left, Chang Hixiang walked quickly to the desk and dialed a number. Boss Qin, it's me. Note 1. In just less than 30 minutes, a series of more complete emergency plans were issued from the Shanghai base at the highest speed. Traffic control was activated within 2 kilometers around the Huaihai commercial district, and the elevated exits within the section were closed. At the same time, in order to cover up the abnormal light in the Huaihai business district, many areas in Shanghai lit up artificially operated sky-high light pillars overnight, and the entire Shanghai suddenly became like the few hairs on a bald man's head. A patrolman named Zheng, who did not want to reveal his name, complained like this. Ahem, let's get back to the topic. At this moment, in the base camp of Shenzhen, in the core layer, in the East War, on some roaring machines, those who know the inside story all look up at the stars. They are waiting for an answer. Note 1, don't ask about the title, you have been blocked 3 times. Chapter 3 Another World. Another World. When Qin Zhendong arrived at the scene, the entire commercial district where the milk tea shop was located had been completely put under martial law. Boss Qin, you are finally here. Chang Hixiang walked up quickly and shook Qin Zhendong's hand excitedly. Now we finally have a backbone. These words were not all compliments from the subordinate to the superior, at least 70% of Chang Hixiang's true inner feelings. An hour ago, according to the instructions of the core layer, before Qin Zhendong arrived at the Huaihai commercial district, Chang Hixiang was the temporary commander-in-chief on the scene. Although Chang Hixiang's name contains the word Chang, his position is still a long way from being a Chang. In the complex place of Shanghai, it is really not a big official. Let alone other things, just talking about the administrative level of the Shanghai First Hospital that needs to be temporarily handed over, the director and even the deputy director are half a level higher than Chang Hixiang. Although the attitude of the leaders of all parties to cooperate is very positive, after all, the gap in administrative levels is real. So after a while of commanding with gritted teeth, Chang Hixiang's clothes were mostly wet. As a member of the system, Qin Zhendong could fully understand the pressure Chang Hixiang was facing. He patted Chang Hixiang on the shoulder and said, Comrade Hixiang, you have worked hard. Is the scene under control? Chang Hixiang adjusted his breathing and recited the speech he had prepared in his mind. Boss Qin, the entire commercial street has been cleared at present. It is a bit lucky. The Huaihai Road business district is not open for night markets. At this time, most shops have closed down. In addition, there are a large number of historical buildings such as mansions around, and there are almost no residential areas nearby, so there are not many problems in the clearing process. As for traffic control, Comrade Wang Shuming of the Traffic Police Brigade was in place an hour ago and closed the nearby elevated exit. At present, all unofficial vehicles are prohibited from passing. After saying this, Chang Hixiang paused for a moment and lowered his voice a few points. At the same time, with the cooperation of comrades in Jinling, a sunshade net has been laid on the scene to prevent satellite photography, and the low-orbit satellite with space graffiti capabilities has also entered an activated state, ready to take the next step according to the development of the situation. In addition, the elites of the troops are on standby at the nearby high points. Qin Zhendong digested the content carefully, glanced at the nearby floors covertly, and nodded after seeing a long black tube. The scene is under control very well, worthy of being the steward of the information center. By the way, how is the aperture inside now? Chang Hixiang led Qin Zhendong to the central area, which was in front of Wu Fan's milk tea shop. The aperture has basically not changed. Dean Xiao of the Optical Research Institute arrived a few minutes before you and went in with a spectrometer. There is no result yet. But Xiao Xiao, the grassroots comrade who reported the incident, what he said has been confirmed to be true. We have tried it once, and the things did disappear after being thrown into the circle. A brave comrade even tried to put his hand in, but didn't touch anything. Of course, that comrade has been isolated now. In addition, we tied the camera with a stick and probed to the opposite side, but only captured a mosaic. Qin Zhendong thoughtfully. In other words, the aperture is indeed connected to an unknown area, but it is not clear where it is exactly. It could be another world with life, or it could be a void somewhere in the universe, or it could even be connected to somewhere on Earth. There could even be a blonde old man behind it, pinching his fingers like an orchid and saying nobody knows better than me. Chang Hixiang didn't expect the boss to think of this so quickly, and a drop of cold sweat slid down his forehead. Yes, the only thing that can be confirmed now is that the aperture is indeed a direct manifestation of some abnormal event, Just as the two were talking, several men in scientific research white coats walked out of the milk tea shop. The leader was a little old man in his 50s or 60s, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, with messy hair, and seemed to be seldom taken care of. "Dean Xiao, here, Chang Hixiang greeted the old man politely. After a group of people in white coats came over, Chang Hixiang introduced to Qin's Hendong, "Boss Qin, this is Director Xiaoping of the Shenzhen Optical Research Institute, a senior academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering, and the others are his disciples." They went in to conduct inspections. As soon as they arrived at the scene, Qin's Hendong hurriedly shook hands with Xiaoping. "President Xiao, thank you for your hard work. The situation is urgent, so let's not be polite. Are there any results from the inspection?" Xiaoping shook his head in frustration. He pointed to an instrument similar to a small refrigerator in the arms of a disciple and said, "This is the most advanced spectrometer in our laboratory. In addition to scanning and identifying the basic characteristics of objects, it also has the function of recording optical information. In theory, it can analyze the spectra of all light sources. At the very least, it can include the wave bands first." But that aperture, Xiaoping sighed softly. It was obvious that the aperture had exceeded the scope of what the spectrometer could analyze. Qin Zhendong was about to say a few words to comfort Xiaoping when he saw a soldier hurriedly running out of the milk tea shop and walked up to them. "Report, the aperture is moving, it's expanding, the aperture has changed." In an instant, time seemed to freeze within a 20-meter range centered on the milk tea shop. A moment later, a series of gasps were heard. A military representative who had just arrived at the scene and was about to meet Qin Zhendong was so excited that he crushed the mineral water bottle in his hand. The muscles on Qin Zhendong's face twitched fiercely. The qualities of a frontier official made him surprisingly calm at this moment. "Leave a few video transmission devices in the milk tea shop to ensure that there are no blind spots, and share the video with a core layer. The plant laboratory should pull up a gas barrier filter around the milk tea shop and make sure it is sealed. Snipers and medical teams are on standby, and all other personnel should evacuate to 200 meters away and execute immediately." Under the order, all departments took action at the same time. At the same time, the aperture in Wu Fan's milk tea shop was undergoing a strange change. The originally quiet aperture suddenly shone brightly, slowly expanded in size, and finally turned into a square shape. Countless colorful runes flew out from the center like salutes and scattered. These runes did not disappear after landing, but were stacked and condensed like bricks and stones, forming a base of about 30 centimeters. Then, the square-shaped luminous body slowly descended and finally embedded accurately in the base. The scene of the aperture change was fully recorded by the camera installed in the store and transmitted to the outside world at the same time. A standard square of about 8 meters in length and width. The upper part passed through the roof but did not cause any damage to the floors. The external pillar of light also disappeared. Qin Zhendong witnessed the entire process of the aperture change in the makeshift tent command center. He turned to Lin Li, the head of the Shenzhen Vegetation Research Institute beside him and said, "Director Lin, let's proceed according to the plan." Lin Li nodded, took out a paging device from his waist, entered an internal channel number and said, "Dr. Wang, this is Lin Li. Please use the P3 node of the isolation filter to place the gas sampling facility into the milk tea shop. The permission code of the P3 node is 596. A female voice came from the other side of the paging device. "Wang Qiang received it, Wang Qiang received it. I am heading to the outer edge of the isolation filter and will soon place the gas sampling facility." Lin Li heard the excitement in Wang Qiang's tone, shook his head helplessly, and smiled at the people around him as if to explain, "This girl, if only she could be as diligent as she is when she goes on a blind date." "Director Lin, the intercom is on." "I heard everything, Lin Li." There was a burst of good-natured laughter in the command center, which somewhat dispelled the tension. 10 minutes later, Wang Qiang's voice rang out from the paging device, "Director Lin, the sampling test results are out. There is no difference between the gas content in the store and outside. After the sampler completed its task, I controlled it to pass through the aperture as required, and tried to see if the camera it carried could capture anything. The result, the faces of everyone in the headquarters suddenly became serious. What happened? The sampler lost contact. Both the conventional transmission band of the sampler and the satellite transmission band connected to the camera have failed. It is unknown whether the machine is damaged or the signal cannot be transmitted. In addition, The little white mouse with a camera that we tied with a rope also disappeared after passing through that door. Qin Zhendong took the paging device and said, "Comrades Io Wang, I am Qin Zhendong from the Shanghai base camp. You have completed your task very well. The loss of contact with the sampler was within the headquarters' expectations. Don't be too frustrated. Now, you can return to the team." After turning off the communication equipment, Qin Zhendong restrained his smile and said to the heads of various departments, "Comrades, you have heard that the video equipment cannot transmit signals from behind the aperture. Now it should be called the light gate. In this way, the original plan to use electronic search and rescue dogs to explore the way is invalid, which means that we only have one way to go." He stood up and looked around. "Organize people, go through the door and find out." The order was quickly issued. In less than a few minutes, an advance team composed of 3 elite soldiers was sent out and stepped into the light gate. Considering that the sample may undergo some abnormal changes when passing through the light gate, for the sake of safety, this team does not need to do any sample collection. They are wearing full protective clothing, and the whole mission is only one: go through the light gate, see the situation behind the light gate clearly, and then do everything possible to come back. 10 minutes later, the entire advance team returned. In addition to the lost sampling machine, they also brought back an exciting piece of news. Behind the light gate is a valley where people can breathe normally. There are obvious signs of birds living in the valley. At the same time, according to the scenes recorded in the advance team's recorder, the staff said that the area where the valley is located can basically rule out the possibility that it is a certain area on the earth. Qin Zhendong frowned and looked at Chang Qixiang, who is reporting, "Why do you make such a judgment?" "Because there are 3 suns hanging in the sky." Chapter 4: Another World. Another world. The news brought back by the reconnaissance team was immediately reported to the core level. After some discussion at the core level, new instructions were quickly issued to the Shanghai base camp. The Shanghai command immediately organized a new exploration team to conduct a full-scale secondary exploration of the area behind the light gate. Less than half an hour after receiving the instructions from the capital, Chang Qixiang handed a list to Qin Zhendong. "Boss Qin, the team members for the second exploration have been assembled. The second exploration team is code-named Xinhuo. Comrade Ling Li, director of the Shanghai Vegetation Research Institute and academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, is the team leader, and Comrade Zhang Guchen, director of the Shanghai Institute of Physics, is the deputy team leader. The team consists of 89 people in total, all of whom will wear protective clothing. In addition to the captain and deputy captain, they are divided into the following groups. The sampling team consists of 8 people, led by Wen Qiang, a doctor from the Shanghai Vegetation Laboratory, who is responsible for sampling and analyzing the soil, air, and water sources in the area behind the light gate. The medical team consists of 7 people, led by Bao Xin, the director of the Shanghai First People's Hospital, who is responsible for blood and pathological analysis of biological samples behind the light gate, and providing medical support for the Xinhuo team. The survey team consists of 14 people, jointly formed by the Shanghai Institute of Physics and the Shanghai Institute of Geography, led by Zhou Yuangxin, a doctor from the Institute of Physics, who is responsible for surveying data such as geographical indicators and physical constants behind the light gate. There are 2 linguists and sign language experts from the Applied Linguistics Department of Shanghai University. This is to prepare for possible contact with higher life forms. Although the language behind the light gate is likely to be different from the language on Earth, these people are senior professionals in related fields after all, and they may be able to play a role. In short, it is better to be prepared. The communication team consists of 6 people. Since the recorder of the advance team successfully recorded the image behind the gate, the communication team carried exploration equipment such as electronic search and rescue dogs and military drones, and will try to see if the radio communication equipment can be used normally behind the light gate. In addition, there are 50 elite warriors accompanying the team. Each of them is equipped with standard unit individual weapons and ammunition, and in order to prevent the failure of hot weapons after passing through the light gate, each warrior is also equipped with cold weapons such as machetes. At the same time, these warriors will also build a temporary camp with a certain impact resistance. If everything goes well, this will be our command center behind the light gate, responsible for the transmission and handover of information with the Shanghai base camp. The above is the personnel configuration and responsibilities of the Xinhuo exploration team. Please give instructions, Boss Qin. Qin Zhendong took the list, read it carefully, and praised, "You did a good job. I have no objection. Follow this list." Chang Hixiang's expression was serious. "Got it, I will notify the team to set off." At 3 a.m. on July 17, 2022, the 89-member Xinhou exploration team was officially assembled. At 3:15 a.m. on July 17, 2022, the Xinhou exploration team, led by the team leader academician Lin Li, all passed through the light gate. Shalala, at the same time as the Xinhou team passed through the light gate. In the temporary command center, several screens instantly turned gray. Boss Qin, neutrino communication has also failed. This is the most penetrating communication method at present. The equipment connected by wired optical cables has no signal either. A leader of the army shook his head and said to Qin's Hendong, "At least without updating the technology, the signal cannot be transmitted synchronously inside and outside the optical gate. Now we can only hope that the communication equipment on the other side of the optical gate can be used normally like the recorder." Qin's Hendong looked at the last explorer who walked into the optical gate on the screen, with a complicated expression. "I hope so." On the other side, behind the optical gate, the first to pass through the optical gate was the special service team led by Colonel Lin Ziming of the logistics branch, that is, the 50 soldiers accompanying the team. Lin Ziming is 37 years old this year, with a standard square face, tall but not bloated, and at first glance he is the kind of loyal soldier who would never betray even in special times. Not to mention the awareness, otherwise this burden would not fall on him. As a science fiction enthusiast, Lin Ziming likes to read science fiction novels, so he always thinks that the process of traveling through the light gate will be very difficult. Maybe it will crush the body like a compressor, the kind that all the internal organs are displaced, or at least it will rotate like a drum washing machine for 100 rounds. When you can't tell north from south, you will fall heavily to the ground. After getting up, you will vomit all over the floor like a pregnant woman. When you come to your senses, the first thing the rabbits do in the alien world is to take out plastic bags to clean up the filth. But to his surprise, the process of traveling is not as complicated as he imagined. A flash of dazzling light passed by, and he found himself in a valley. In fact, the advance team had reported the process of crossing earlier. However, the order from the top came too quickly, and there were many things to be handed over. Such insignificant things are naturally only known to the captain Lin Li. After a slight surprise, Lin Ziming quickly came to his senses with his high military literacy. He took a quick look at the surroundings, glanced at the three-wheeled sun hanging in the sky, and shouted to the other soldiers, "Everyone, 3 people in a group, 50 meters alert." The scout communication squad assembled and stood by, waiting for the captain's further instructions. After giving these orders, Lin Ziming took an automatic rifle from his back and put on the silencer at the same time. This was an order issued by the Shenzhen command before departure. Then he aimed at a wooden stake and pulled the trigger. Swish, swish, swish. After shooting, Lin Ziming walked quickly to the wooden stake. There were 7 or 8 bullet holes on the surface of the wooden stake, and light could be seen through the bullet holes. The bullet penetrated a thick wooden stake. Then Lin Ziming took off the silencer and removed the sleeve outside the barrel, and put his fingers on the barrel and touched it gently. After firing multiple shots, there was a slight temperature on the barrel. The temperature means that the rifling is normal, and the bullet has kinetic energy in this world. Whether weapons that require radar or algorithm assistance can be used still needs the survey team to measure the physical constants before a conclusion can be drawn. But no matter what, at least conventional guns can be used normally after the light gate. There is no doubt that this is great news. You know, the upper and lower limits of the world after the light gate are unknown and beyond the control of the exploration team. But the fact that firearms can be used means that the lower limit of our side has been determined. An automatic rifle is always much more useful than a machete in most cases. While testing the firearms, the researchers of the Xinhou team also passed through the light gate one after another. After Lin Li had adapted to the valley environment, he saw Lin Ziming holding an automatic rifle at first sight, and hurried over. "Colonel Lin, how is it? Can the gun be used?" "Academician Lin." Lin Ziming greeted his cousin and pointed to the bullet hole on the tree stump. "Look, this is a bullet hole after shooting. The automatic rifle can be fired normally." Lin Li was immediately overjoyed. "Really? That's good news. With a gun, I feel much more at ease. By the way, Colonel Lin, now that the personnel are in place, the leaders of each group can come and meet." Chapter 5 First Exploration. After the team members passed through the light gate one after another, A temporary camp was quickly built. At this moment, Lin Li was arranging tasks in the command tent in the center of the camp. He first said to his doctoral students and sampling team leader Wen Qiang, "Our team assembled in a hurry. The quality of the barrier materials brought by the logistics team is limited. Generally, they can only reach the 1000-level purification standard, which is the laboratory level for testing aircraft gyroscopes or high-quality micro-bearings. There are very few materials that can be used to build a temporary Class 100 sterile test area. At most, we can only partition off a Class 100 area of about 3 square meters. Your team has a heavy task." Wang Qiang patted his chest and gave Lin Li a firm look in his eyes. "Please rest assured, Captain Lin, as long as it is not a blind date, I will guarantee to complete all tasks." Lin Li, "Okay, get out of here quickly. I want to see a detailed analysis report within 6 hours. Lin Li waved his hand with a smile and cursed, and no longer cared about this funny older scientific research leftover woman. He turned to the other team leaders and said, "Comrades, we won't say much nonsense. Let's act according to the original plan." Lao Zheng, referring to Deputy Team Leader Zheng Guchen, Director of the Shenzhen Institute of Physics, "The survey team will be responsible for both geography and physics projects at the same time, so you should pay more attention to it." Then, he found Bao Xin, the leader of the medical team, among several people. "By the way, Dean Bao, the blood and pathology analysis of the medical team may have to wait a little longer to start. After all, we haven't caught any living creatures yet. Please inform the team members about this. After all, we have just built a camp. We should focus on stability and take it step by step." Upon hearing this, Bao Xin waved his hand briskly. "It's a small matter. The people who came this time are all senior medical staff and experts from our first hospital. Many of them have fought in the 2003 battle. They are patient and aware. They will obey the instructions of the headquarters and everything." "That's good." Lin Li didn't worry too much about it. After all, everyone had signed the volunteer form before coming. "Let's do this for now. All teams will return to their positions and carry out work according to the original plan." After everyone dispersed, Lin Li found Lin Ziming again. "Colonel Lin, the communication team will conduct a radio test soon. You should also prepare on your side. If everything is normal, start human-machine collaborative mapping immediately." The so-called human-machine collaborative mapping refers to the ground-to-air mapping method that combines detection machinery composed of drones and electronic dogs with human scouts. Drones are responsible for the overall mapping of the surface topography, while scouts and electronic dogs detect some smaller plots. Of course, the above methods are inseparable from the basic technology of radio communication. Radio communication testing is also one of the core tasks of the Xinhao team this time. Outside the headquarters tent, Wang Yaohua, a member of the communication team and the squad leader of the elite communication squad of the Shenzhen Garrison District, started the military drone on standby on the ground as soon as he received the order. Just like Lin Ziming's experimental firearms. In order to prevent noise from causing some unknown dangers, military drones have been equipped with silencing methods early. With only a subtle startup sound, the drone flew briskly into the sky. And it flew higher and higher. Wang Yaohua still pursed his lips tightly, and his mood did not relax because of the drone's flight. The advanced team has proved that electronic equipment can be used normally behind the light gate, but this does not mean that wireless communication is also unaffected. Just like a mobile phone, taking photos and videos and making phone calls online are two completely different concepts. So the drone can take off normally, which can only be said to be half successful. The key lies in the signal transmission behind it. As the drone's altitude continues to rise, Wang Yaohua's heart rate continues to increase. Military drones do not have a limit on flight altitude. After a while, the drone's shadow disappeared from the naked eye. Wang Yaohua rushed to the equipment station and asked hurriedly, "What is the altitude? Is the signal normal?" The communicator quickly reported a number, 800 meters, 900 meters, 1,100 meters. The altitude numbers are constantly updated, but the image on the equipment station screen is not blurred at all. Half an hour has passed. The communicator's voice has become a little hoarse, but his emotions are extremely high. "Squad leader, the drone has stayed at this altitude for 20 minutes after reaching the quasi-pressure line of 5,652 meters. The stay time exceeds 3 times the standard measurement time of the military drone estate communication. At present, the signal is normal, the image transmission is normal, and the radio communication is normal." "Great." In excitement, The entire communication team suddenly burst into cheers. It's not that Wang Yaohu and others are not mentally competent, but as a member of the Xinhao exploration team and also a high-tech communications technician, they really know what the 6 words wireless communication is normal mean in the map of the other world. Again, this is the demarcation line of the lower limit of postmodern technology in the light gate. The place where the communications team tested the drone was not far from the other teams. As the news spread, the atmosphere of the entire camp immediately became much higher, and the enthusiasm of each group to work also became a little more enthusiastic. Lin Li was also excited by the news. The old man was so excited that his face was flushed. Great, great. Please tell Lieutenant Colonel Lin Ziming to immediately arrange for personnel to conduct human-machine collaborative mapping. It is necessary to map the terrain and topography of the valley and the surrounding areas in the shortest time, and at the same time, carry out the Jianmu Plan. The Jianmu Plan is a major strategic plan issued by the core think tank before the Xinhao team entered the light gate. The core of the Jianmu project is only one: to explore the signs of life in the world behind the light gate, to do everything possible to find the gathering of higher organisms, to give priority to observation under the premise of being able to not disturb the other party, and to be ready to contact the other civilization at any time. As early as when it was decided to send the exploration team, the core layer had repeatedly discussed the possible situations. No one knows what kind of world is behind the gate. Maybe it is the era of savages, maybe it is a technological civilization far beyond the Earth. It is not impossible for a Godzilla to jump out, and it is not ruled out that a Boruto will jump out and extinguish the sun. The first situation is needless to say. If it is the latter, the consequences are hard to say. But in the end, the rabbits decided to take this step. The reason is simple: just because this is a world. That's enough. Since it has been decided to enter the other world, the plan to contact civilization will naturally come into being. As for whether this contact is civil or military, it depends on the situation. The rabbits love peace, this is beyond doubt, and no one can deny this. But you have to know that the rabbit is currently facing a completely new world that it has never encountered before, and it has not even seen what the higher life forms in this world look like. It is inevitable to make preparations for both situations. In this situation, emphasizing peace without any precautions is stupid. If there are foreign civilizations in this world, and they can communicate and reach a consensus on basic cognition, then the rabbit will naturally treat them with courtesy. But if the other party is the kind of goblin who will hit you in the face with a stick if you don't agree with him, then still talking about peace? Nonsense. Chapter 6 First Exploration. Due to the complete plan and arrangement in advance, the results of the tasks of each group came out one after another within 5 hours after the whole camp started working. The first team to report the situation was the sampling team led by Wen Kang. This funny guy was holding a stack of reports in his hand and looked a little excited. Director Lin, the top one is the sampling results of soil and air, and the bottom one is the analysis report of water samples. Lin Li keenly noticed a word: water sample? Have you found the water source? Half and half. Wang Kang scratched his head, and before Lin Li asked what half and half meant, he took the initiative to explain. The comrades of the logistics team found a mountain spring when they were breaking rocks. The source flow is not large, so it can't be called a real water source, but it has some reference value. Lin Li nodded, took the report, shook it, and read it word by word. As a senior academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, this kind of table is naturally no pressure for Lin Li. 0.034% carbon dioxide, which is about the same as the Earth's nitrogen, which is only 62%. The oxygen content is close to 26%? Have you confirmed it? When it comes to key data issues, Wang Kang naturally dare not be careless. Our team has conducted 3 rounds of cross-validation on the relevant data, and the values of each round of verification are almost the same. I know what you want to say. The oxygen content of 26% is a bit high for Earthlings, even exceeding the concept of oxygen enrichment. This oxygen concentration can easily damage proteins, lipids and DNA, and accelerate human aging. Oxygen poisoning is not a problem. Young people with better physiques are estimated to have no major problems in the short term, but it is hard to say for older people. Wang Kang glanced at Lin Li's sparse forehead and added, for example, oily hair loss may occur. Ouch! Lin Li calmly retracted the ballpoint pen and glared at this funny guy. Stop talking nonsense. Let's not talk about oxygen first. What about this 11% unknown gas? Wang Qiang spread his hands neatly. I don't know. Seeing that Lin Li was about to hide her head with a ballpoint pen again, Wang Qiang immediately jumped back, like a cat with its fur standing on end. I really don't know. The gas chromatograph can't analyze the composition of this part of the gas at all. Even with the ion source, it's still useless. Besides, this is a different world. Don't you want to know something unknown? Lin Li's hand froze, and he seemed to be thinking, that's true. After all, this is a different world. As he said that, Lin Li looked at his right hand hanging in the air, thought for half a second, and then hit Wang Qiang's head again. Well, this is much more comfortable. Wang Qiang covered her head, looking aggrieved. What are you doing? If you keep knocking, I'll go crazy TT. Lin Li ignored this drama queen and turned to look at Zheng Guchen, the deputy captain of the Xinhao team and the director of the Shenzhen Institute of Physics. Old Zheng, how is the survey team going? Zheng Guchen is a little old man with a bloated figure. He is also a big man at the academician level. Hearing this, he immediately said, Xiao Wang from the Institute of Geography first determined the specific directions of the east, south, west and north, and then measured the topography of the valley where we are. The width of the valley we are in is about 200 meters and the depth is nearly 2 kilometers. There are 2 roads out of the valley, both with a slope of about 30 degrees, and fuel vehicles can easily climb to the top of the slope. There are also some results in terms of physical constants. The kilogram prototype and spring dynamometer we brought are still normal, and the unit of force has not changed, which means that there is no need to redefine the mass and the units of force and length in the new world. At the same time, the radio intensity of the galactic halo gas has also been measured, and the GZK limit value of this world has also been determined. In addition, the molar volume of the gas under standard conditions is the same as that of the Earth, and the Avogadro constant is still 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23 mole. But Lin Li's expression immediately became solemn. But what? Through the Cavendish torsion balance and other experiments, we found that the gravitational constant and Planck's constant have changed, and the gravity is only 91.4% of that of the Earth. Zheng Guchen shook his head and muttered, to put it bluntly, once the gravitational constant and acceleration change, the trajectories of many weapons need to be recalculated. The specific calculation process still needs to be discussed with the technical comrades of the troops, and it is estimated that a lot of effort will be spent on it. As for the trajectory of the planets, there are currently insufficient conditions for observation. By the way, we are still measuring the time scale of the alien world. We can only determine that the time flow rate of the alien world is the same as that of the Earth, and there is no need to use atomic clocks to measure the cardinal units. It's strange to say that we have been in the alien world for several hours, and the 3 suns in the sky haven't moved a step. Lin Li patted the shoulder of this old acquaintance. The survey team has done a good job. Just like Xiao Wang said, this is a different world. You can't expect all constants to match the Earth's, right? Just recalculate some data. Our country is so powerful that we can always solve it with manpower and material resources. Yes, Wang Qiang, the funny guy, nodded vigorously at the side. It's like playing online games. It's a big problem if all the questions are question marks when you throw the identification spell. Things that can light up the health bar are not a big deal. It must be said that sometimes having a funny guy around can really make people feel relaxed. Lin Li saw that Zheng Guchen's face calmed down a little. Just as he was about to say a few more words, he suddenly saw Lin Ximing walk into the tent quickly. Captain Lin, the drone has found a large biological gathering point. Large. Biological. Gather, point. These words rang in their ears like a blockbuster bomb, shocking everyone. Lin Li's tiredness from a sleepless night suddenly disappeared, and he asked, Comrade Ximing, what is the other party's life form? What is their civilization level? Has the drone been discovered? The other party's technological level does not seem to be high, and the drone has no signs of being exposed. Let's talk about the rest of the information while watching the video. Lin Ximing answered the most critical question first, and then led everyone to the command desk in the tent. I have asked Comrade Xiao Wang from the communications team to import the images into the computer. As he spoke, Lin Ximing pressed a button, and soon a high-definition image appeared on the command screen. As soon as the video started playing, Wang Qiang exclaimed, "It's so clear, our drone uses the military version of the Street 6200 TPS device, which can still achieve broadcast-level image quality at an altitude of 3,000 meters. In terms of image accuracy alone, it is comparable to that of the Americans. Of course, there are still some gaps in structure and power. Lin Ziming took advantage of the free time before the key picture appeared to add some information that he had not had time to report. We dispatched a total of 6 military drones to carry out the exploration mission. The target was the number 4 drone flying south. The target area is about 18 kilometers away from us in a straight line. As soon as the voice fell, a city appeared on the screen. The city looked small in area, with mottled and thick outer walls, as if made of loess. There were carriages passing in and out of the city gate. The buildings in the city looked similar to those in ancient China, mainly low-rise buildings, with few high-rise buildings, and obvious eaves and door structures. The most conspicuous mansion was clearly a large courtyard with 8 entrances. Then Lin Ziming fiddled with a few buttons, and the drone's view began to slowly zoom in. Gradually, a large number of clear human figures appeared in the picture. These people in the picture were dressed simply, and their appearance was no different from that of Chinese people. It was obvious that the front of their clothes was covered to the right. Some were pushing trucks to sell goods, some were walking calmly, and some were entering and leaving some buildings in the city. Looking at this scene, 4 words suddenly appeared in everyone's mind like a conditioned reflex: ancient China. Note 1. Students who have doubts about the military drone footage can search for related videos online, such as some drone footage of marathon competitions. The accuracy of military aircraft cameras is that they can capture clear portraits at an altitude of 3,000 meters with high magnification. Note 2. I directly set the basic constants of the New World to be the same as those of the Earth. Otherwise, this book can be written, but I guess not many people will read it. For example, the most basic spring force measurement experiment cannot be written without 6,000 words. After measuring the word count of the entire set of basic constants, it can be put on the shelf. Laugh. I will explain the reasons for gravity and so on later. The outline has been set, but don't worry too much about cows, meters, seconds, etc. Chapter 7 First Exploration. The footage shot by the drone was not long, only about 5 or 6 minutes. But the amount of information contained in it was really not small. After watching the video, Lin Li asked Lin Ziming, "Colonel Lin, how big is the scale of this city?" Lin Ziming had obviously done his homework and immediately reported a number. The area of the city is about 16 square kilometers, and the specifications are close to square. The population is currently unknown. A square of 16 square kilometers, that is, a pattern of 4,000 meters long and wide. Lin Li quickly sketched a model in his mind, and then asked someone next to him, "Professor Ma, you are an expert in humanities. Generally speaking, is a city of this size considered large or small?" Professor Ma, who Lin Li mentioned, is full name Ma Ning, a famous professor of applied linguistics at Nanling University. At the same time, Ma Ning is also a senior researcher in humanities and history, and one of the honorary consultants of Nanling Museum. Ma Ning's main task on this trip is to conduct a preliminary analysis of the possible language and culture of the other world, while providing cultural information support to the Xinhua team. It is also necessary to make basic preparations for the possible third-type contact. Facing numerous questions, Ma Ning took a sip of wolfberry tea from his thermos cup and said leisurely, 16 square kilometers is roughly equivalent to the size of a county town in modern times. I mean the kind of county town that is not a county-level city, which is not that big. But in the ancient context, let's put it this way. In the history of China and even the world before 1000 AD, cities of this size were not considered small. In order to help everyone understand this concept more intuitively, Ma Ning gave another example. You all know Chang'an in the Han Dynasty. During the Han Dynasty, the area of Chang'an City was only about 36 square kilometers, and this was already one of the top 10 cities in terms of area in feudal history. Zheng Guchen was a complete history idiot. He smacked his lips when he heard this. 36 square kilometers is in the top 10? Then which city was the largest in ancient times? How many square kilometers was it? Ma Ning glanced at the fat old man and patiently explained, the largest city in ancient times was also Chang'an, but it was Chang'an City in the Sui and Tang dynasties, 400 years after the Han Dynasty. But even in the peak period of ancient times, Chang'an had an urban area of only more than 80 square kilometers and a population of just over 1 million, which was only equivalent to the urban area of an ordinary prefecture-level city today. Of course, considering the technological level and social productivity of ancient times, this is already a miracle that is difficult to replicate. After explaining history to a group of science students, Ma Ning pointed to a corner of the screen and said, "Everyone, look here again. Colonel Lin, please zoom in on this picture a little bit." The picture Ma Ning pointed to was outside the city, near the lower left of the screen. Through the pictures recorded by the drone, it can be distinguished that it is a continuous slope. As Lin Ziming enlarged the picture, the scene on the slope became clearer and clearer. On this continuous slope, wave-like contour lines were cultivated. These contour lines were distributed layer by layer along the steep hillside, like steps built for giants to ascend to the sky. "Huh?" Lin Li exclaimed and looked at Ma Ning. "This is terraced fields." Ma Ning nodded. "Yes, this is a very standardized terraced field. Team leader Lin, you may not know much about it. Terraced fields are one of the important symbols of the development of farming technology, and farming technology can be used to judge and even define the bottom line of civilization development most of the time." Lin Li is not a fool, so he naturally understood the meaning of this sentence. "Professor Ma, in which dynasty did the terraced fields appear in China? According to historical data, it should be the Qin and Han dynasties." Ma Ning did not keep him in suspense. In other words, the civilization system where the city is located can generally be used as a reference for the Qin and Han civilizations. Whether there are extraordinary powers in this world still needs to be explored separately, but as long as it is not exaggerated to the point that everyone can fly, then at least the livelihood foundation of such a civilization can be benchmarked against the Qin and Han civilizations to a certain extent. Lin Li was silent for 2 seconds, and suddenly reacted, "Damn, no wonder you used Shenzhen in the Han dynasty for comparison, so you have already seen it? I say, old Ma, you literati are too cunning." "Right." Ma Ning chuckled twice, his mustache twitching proudly. "It's not my fault, everyone has their own specialty. It's a rare opportunity to come to another world, how can I not show off my expertise? Seeing you guys working so hard on scientific research, I can't bear to be lonely." Lin Li glared at him unhappily, thinking to himself, where did these idiots come from in the team? Then he picked up the ballpoint pen and tapped Wang Qiang's head, who was watching the show. "Wang Qiang?" Then Lin Li coughed lightly and said to everyone, "Okay, let's get back to the point. So far, except for the medical team, the first phase of the mission of the other teams of our Xinhao team has been successfully completed. Xiao Wang, Lao Zhang, and Comrade Zhao Hua, I will give you 10 minutes to organize the relevant reports on sampling and surveying and hand them over to Colonel Lin. Colonel Lin, please go through the light gate in person and hand over all the information, including the drone video, to Boss Qin at the Shenchang base camp. Then ask the core layer to make new instructions, and by the way, see if there are any new personnel and materials that need to be handed over. Oh, by the way, while waiting for the new instructions from the base camp, each team can take turns to rest and replenish their spirits. After all, some comrades may not be able to bear it after rushing to the alien world in the middle of the night and working for so long." Lin Ziming and others responded in unison, received, 10 minutes later. Except for the medical team, the analysis reports of all teams were put into a confidential bag and brought back to Shenchang on Earth by Lin Ziming, the leader of the special service team of the Xinhao exploration team. At this time, more than 7 hours had passed since all the members of the Xinhao team passed through the light gate. 5 hours later, Lin Ziming returned again. This time, he was accompanied by 200 well-equipped soldiers, dozens of professionals in various fields, and a strategic material weighing 38 tons. These materials are of various types. In addition to basic food, medicine, and tents, it also includes special cement, precision instruments in various fields, a military off-road vehicle, and a large number of hairbuns, headscarves, and ancient linen clothing of varying ages. Of course, there is also a new order with the seal of the headquarters. Launch the second phase of the exploration plan, send scouts to collect information on the discovered cities, and be prepared to contact foreign civilizations at any time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Julian. 40 minutes ago, the Keyhole II satellite just flew over, and our low-orbit satellite sprayed space graffiti in advance. In the camp tent, Lin Ziming was handing over information with Lin Li. Satellites are mainly divided into 3 series, namely Keyhole, long lacrosse and snow ferret, but they are mainly responsible for the western and southern coastal areas, and Shanghai is not particularly high priority. In addition, there have been precedents of spraying space graffiti in previous years, so there is no big problem with keeping the news confidential in a short period of time, but it is hard to say for a long time. The so-called space graffiti technology refers to the use of low-orbit high-speed attack satellites. When approaching the satellite, paint mist bombs are fired at it through accurately calculated orbits. This paint mist bomb contains high molecular and high viscosity magnetoelectric materials. After spraying, it will be adsorbed on the satellite's lenses, solar panels, electronic sensors, and other key equipment, making them temporarily ineffective. This is also one of the more commonly used technologies at present. In fact, whether it is Lin-Ziming or Lin Li, they are very clear, but the details are not what they can explore and know. This kind of thing, let alone 2022, even if the last 2 is removed, it is a taboo in the late Tang Dynasty in 202. If it is really said, the number 202 will be doubled to 404. Ahem, let's get back to the point. The rabbits will not slow down their exploration of the other world because of this. In fact, after seeing the lanthanide rare earth element content in the soil sample analysis report sent back by the Xinhao team, which accounts for a large proportion, several rabbits' eyes turned red on the spot, and they were almost ready to rush to the other world with shovels to mine. After finally appeasing these shovel-wielding classes, the rest of the rabbits discussed it. Since the first phase of the task has been almost completed, let's try to contact the foreign civilization. Of course. It's called contact, but it's actually a one-sided test after all. The rabbits are all steady. So, there are a bunch of various ancient costumes in the supplies brought back by Lin-Ziming. Lin-Ziming picked up a coarse linen shirt from the pile of clothes. These are clothes found from the Shenzhen Drama Academy. They are made of silk, cotton and linen, and have all been processed using technical means. This part is old on the surface but has no tears, that part has been patched, and the back has 5 or 6 holes. The worst looking one is the one on the right. Apart from the shape of the clothes, there are only some strips of cloth left. Lin Li was quite interested in these clothes and happily flipped through a few of them. After reading it, he pointed to several sealed bottles and asked, "What are these?" Lin-Ziming picked up a sealed bottle and tossed it gently. "These are the dirt prepared by the Shenzhen Chemical Research Institute. The components of these dirt are harmless to the human body, but the smell is terrible. You can smear them on your face or clothes to make you look more like refugees." Lin Li broke out in a cold sweat. The base camp has thought of this very carefully. At this time, Ma Ning, who was listening on the side, suddenly interrupted and said, "Refugee? Is this the identity arranged for the investigators?" Lin-Ziming nodded. "The language of the alien world is not yet known, and we don't understand the monetary system. We don't know whether there is gold in this world. In this case, the safest way to explore is to pretend to be a refugee with a language barrier. In the previous drone footage, we found a large number of refugees. Among all known identities, refugees are the easiest to imitate." Then he said to the outside, "Platoon leader, you, please come in." As soon as the words fell, a man walked in from outside the tent. The man had disheveled hair, was not tall, and had a thin body. His clothes had several holes in them, and he exuded a faint, sour smell similar to that of rotten eggs. This smell was not pleasant. But no one at the scene, including the woman Wang Qiang, showed any disdain or disgust. They knew very well that this was the base camp of the Xinhao squad, the hinterland of the hinterland, and there could be no outside homeless people. Lin-Ziming pointed at this person with a proud look on his face. "This is Comrade Julian, an elite scout in our garrison area. In the multinational military exercise a few years ago, he was the first to find the base camp of the Gallic Chicken and made great contributions to our team's final victory. On the border battlefield, he has also participated in major strategic tasks many times and made countless contributions. Unfortunately, due to confidentiality regulations, he has not been able to be publicly commended. And this time, Comrade Julian took the initiative to volunteer, hoping to sneak into the target city as a mute refugee for exploration." After hearing Lin-Ziming's introduction, everyone present looked at Julian with a little more respect. "This is an unknown soldier." Lin Li ignored the stench coming from Julian and stepped forward to shake his hand. "Comrade Julian, I salute you. Your mission this time is very important. I'll leave everything to you." Julian's dark face was full of determination. He saluted. "I promise to complete the mission." Due to the lack of knowledge of the planetary orbits of the alien world, the satellite communication method was temporarily ineffective. So in order to ensure that Julian can communicate with the camp normally after entering the city, Shen Chang specially sent a 5-member information engineering team to assist. The task of this information engineering team is very simple: to build a high-frequency signal base station in a hidden place between the city and the camp as an information bridge for communication between the two sides. In addition, following the information engineering team to the signal base station, there is also an infantry special warfare team equipped with advanced weapons. This infantry special warfare team has a capacity of 50 people. In addition to the standard individual weapons, they also carry the PF-97 93mm individual cloud explosion rocket launcher and the FHJ-02 62mm rocket cluster rocket launcher. In short, this team has a strong ability to attack. Of course, this is just the backup plan prepared by the rabbits before the foreign civilization shows hostility. The main task of this special operations team is to act as a harmless mascot. 2 hours later, the dispatched information engineering team sent a message: the high-frequency directional signal base station has been built, and the location is about 8 kilometers outside the target city. At the same time as receiving the information, Yulian set off with the expectations of everyone in the camp. Considering the distance problem, Lin Li arranged an old driver from the car company to use the drone to help open the way. He drove the newly transmitted jeep and sent Yulian to call about 4 kilometers away from the city. "Brother Yu, the rest of the journey is entirely up to you." The driver parked the car in a secluded place in the valley, pointed in a direction and said, "Go straight for a few hundred meters along this road, and you will reach the main road after passing through a forest. Go straight for about 3 kilometers and you will see the city gate. I am a rough man and cannot speak, so I wish you a safe journey. Thank you. I will treat you to a drink when I get back." Julian jumped out of the car swiftly and checked the miniature earphones wrapped in his headscarf and the pinhole camera on his collar. After confirming that the signal of the equipment was normal, he gestured to the driver. He turned around, hunched his shoulders, and quietly moved towards the direction of the city. Looking at Julian's receding figure, the driver saluted from a distance. This man, who had made great contributions on the secret front but was always unknown to the public, now stood up again on the map of the other world without hesitation. It turned into a faint flame, just to illuminate the future path of the giant behind him. Chapter 9: Entering the city. 4 kilometers is not a long way. It took Julian about half an hour to reach the city gate. After arriving at the city gate, he did not rush into the city, but walked slowly along the mud-yellow city wall and walked around the city for a short while. The miniature military camera on his collar clearly recorded the appearance of the city wall. And with the help of the directional signal transmitter and the transfer of the high-frequency base station outside the city, the picture was transmitted to the Xinhao camp 18 kilometers away in real time. In the headquarters of the Xinhao team, a group of experts and scholars who had just arrived at the camp were gathered in front of a 56-inch LED screen, constantly analyzing and discussing the useful information in the picture. Although drones had previously taken pictures of the outer edge of the city wall, they were, after all, a bird's-eye view from top to bottom. Even if the accuracy of the military drones was higher and the focal length could be pulled closer, it was still not as good as the quality of face-to-face shooting. In the pictures transmitted back by Julian, some details that drones could not show were now clearly revealed. For example, the alien language, which had been unresolved, can now be confirmed to be completely different from the Earth language. In addition, the Xinhao camp has a more detailed understanding of the height and appearance of the alien humans. Coincidentally, these alien humans are similar to the Chinese in appearance, with black hair and black pupils, and a more graceful face, not as three-dimensional as Westerners. However, compared to the Chinese, the aliens are slightly shorter, but the extreme individuals are very tall. In the picture sent back by Julian, everyone found a strong man about 2.4 meters tall, which even has a chance to compete for the Guinness record on Earth. When Julian finished shooting the city wall, a middle-aged scholar wearing glasses suddenly frowned, looking puzzled. "No, that's not right. The height of the city wall is about 18 meters, which is higher than Jinling in the Ming dynasty. This height is abnormal. The city wall of Chang'an in the Tang dynasty was only a little over 6 meters. Logically speaking, for a city of this size, a city wall of 7 meters is considered high." Lin Li asked, "Could it be that their basic productivity level is relatively high?" Do they have more manpower and material resources to build a city wall? The middle-aged scholar shook his head and said, Captain Lin, did you notice the picture taken by platoon leader Yu at the city gate? Among the people coming and going, a considerable number of them wore patched clothes, and their faces and bodies were obviously malnourished. Refugees even accounted for half of the number of people entering the city. Whether the upper class has extraordinary power or not is not the point. At least the basic productivity of the city cannot be so surplus that it can build such a city wall at will. Seeing that Lin Li was a little confused, another older scholar added, in social morphology, the minimum standard for basic productivity surplus is the emergence of a large number of middle peasants. This is not difficult to understand. Only when people are well fed and clothed can they have the energy to squander surplus productivity. In other words, the city wall is so high, so it must have its use. I personally have an opinion. Could it be used to defend against foreign enemies? Teacher Jin, I agree with you. The middle-aged scholar adjusted his glasses and pointed to the screen. Everyone can see here, right? It's here. The picture pointed by the middle-aged scholar was located a few meters above the entrance of the city gate. There was a significant dark mark there. Could this be dried blood? Then he pointed out several places, there, here and here. The colors of the above-mentioned locations are different in depth. Combined with the marks suspected of blood, could these be the traces left by the city wall after being damaged in battle? After listening to the judgment of the middle-aged scholar, everyone was silent. Lin Li couldn't help but touch his chin. If it is really as the scholar said, it can make a city choose the latter between people's livelihood and city defense, then this world is probably not very peaceful. On the other side, after collecting enough information about the city wall, Julian returned to the city gate and lined up behind the crowd. Perhaps because there were too many refugees, the soldiers guarding the city only did a rough inspection and let Julian enter the city. Oh, the first level is passed. After entering the city, Julian quickly leaned to the corner of the street. Seeing that there was no one around, he touched the earphone with his fingers under the pretext of adjusting his headscarf. Matcha matcha, this is pudding. I have entered the city and will make the second dessert. Pudding. I am matcha. The first dessert has been received. The taste is excellent. Please continue to mix. After hanging up the communication, Julian exhaled lightly. At the same time, he concentrated his mind and recalled the city structure map taken by the drone in his mind. Soon, Julian located the largest street in the city, and the command headquarters marked it with a capital letter A. Then he hunched over and wandered along the street timidly like an ordinary refugee. This main urban road, codenamed A, is about 20 meters wide and 500 to 600 meters long, running through the center of the city. The flow of people on the street is barely acceptable. There are all kinds of shops along the street, and all kinds of sounds are intertwined. It is the economic center of the entire city. In Yulian's eyes, what is moving on this street is not human figures, but living, walking intelligence. In restaurants and vegetable markets, you can collect types of food from other worlds. The vehicles traveling on the street can provide information about the means of transportation in other worlds, which can determine the industrial level of this city to a certain extent. Some animal-powered vehicles can also collect information about creatures in other worlds. For example, just now, Julian saw a creature that looked like a cow but had 6 legs dragging a truck. Mobile stalls can identify the minimum value of currency in other worlds. Combined with the transaction images of some other medium and large stores, with the help of supercomputers, a little analysis can figure out the currency system of other worlds. With the various sounds collected by recording equipment, linguists can at least parse some common words in other worlds, and the common words of a language family are often very critical basic mother words. All of the above are the benefits of discovering large biological gathering points. As long as you can blend in, it's only a matter of time before you get intelligence. Even if you don't speak the same language, you can still knock a hole. Just like the Earth. Who knows if there are scouts from foreign civilizations like Julian in a certain city, secretly collecting intelligence. Let's get back to the point. Street A is only a few hundred meters long, which is not long. With the footwork of an elite scout like Julian, he can walk a trip in a few minutes. But in order to ensure sufficient sampling, he would often stop after walking a few steps and squat outside a store to collect data. In front of some stores with relatively good business, Julian would squat for an hour. Julian was not afraid of being tired, but he was worried that he had collected less conversation data, and it would be difficult for the headquarters to do sample analysis. So after a lot of busy work, Most of the day had passed. Along the way, Julian always felt a little awkward. The atmosphere of this street was a little wrong. There were a large number of refugees wandering on the street, and the pedestrians on the road looked hurried. Even in those shops that were doing business, customers and shopkeepers completed transactions absent-mindedly. It looked like something big was going to happen. Just when Julian was about to walk around Street A again to see if he could find any clues, a new communication came from the headquarters. Pudding, this is matcha. The second dessert has been tasted. It is rich in ingredients and has a full taste. Please start making the third dessert. Repeat, please start making the third dessert. Julian immediately dodged to the corner. Although he was eager to find out what happened in the city, it was the duty of a soldier to obey orders, so he immediately replied, pudding received, now starting to prepare the third dessert. The preparation process may take a long time, please wait patiently. After hanging up the call, Julian randomly found an intersection and left Street A quietly. His next target was the largest mansion in the city, the large manor with 8 entrances and 8 exits in the previous drone shot. It was also the most luxurious building in the city. In addition to this manor, the largest courtyard in the entire city was only 4 entry, which was exactly twice as much. If Street A is the economic center of this city, then the mansion undoubtedly represents the power center of this city. At the same time, it is also the building most likely to possess extraordinary powers. Chapter 10. Finally seeing the extraordinary. The 8 courtyards is located in the north of the city, about a 20-minute walk from Avenue A compared to the low-rise houses that can be seen everywhere at the south entrance of the city. The houses in the north of the city are obviously much higher in grade. Along the way, Julian saw many standard houses, and vaguely saw gatekeepers and servants walking around inside. Some of them even had plaques hanging on them. Although I couldn't understand the words on the plaques, I thought most of them were Zhang Mansion, Wang Residence, Lin Residence and other door-head hangings that represent family background and social status. According to the Regional Division of Modern Cities, this area in the north of the city is undoubtedly a wealthy area. Just as Julian was secretly observing one of the courtyards, someone suddenly patted his shoulder from behind. Julian turned his head vigilantly, only to see a young servant in blue standing behind him. The young servant looked to be in his early 20s and had a pretty face, but for some reason, he looked tired. The young servant seemed to be somewhat resistant to the smell on Julian's body, frowned, and took a step back. A series of words that Julian couldn't understand came out of his mouth, and it turned out to be a servant. Perhaps he was chasing people away. Julian secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and used his hands to gesture between his ears and lips. Abba Abba. Abba Abba. The blue-clothed servant looked at him with pity, handed him a multi-grain bun, and made an eat gesture. He pointed to a bamboo shed not far away, sighed quietly, and turned away. The bamboo shed pointed by the servant was built at the entrance of an alley, and a long line of vagrants lined up outside the shed. Inside the bamboo shed, there were 5 or 6 people dressed the same as the blue-clothed servant, distributing food and porridge to the refugees. Obviously, this is a relief point opened by a family in the city. Touching the multi-grain bun that was still a little warm in his hand, looking at the long line of refugees outside the bamboo shed, Julian's mood suddenly became a little complicated. These refugees were rugged, skinny, with exposed skin covered in filth, and numb expressions like those of the dead, looking extremely miserable. There were also several older people, leaning crookedly and weakly to one side, crying softly, or sobbing and wailing. This is a scene that cannot be seen on the land of China in 2022. People are like grass, full of sadness and despair. The command center far away in the valley was also silent at this time. These aliens seem to have encountered famine or disaster? With such a large number of refugees, the radiation range behind them is probably not small. Linley stared at the screen with a heavy face. A girl among the refugees reminded him of his little granddaughter who was still in Shenzhen. The same age. One is the apple of the family's eye, with thousands of pampered and one, giving whatever he wants, and is as delicate as a little princess. The other person, on the other hand, was struggling in another world separated by a light gate. He was thin and yellow, lying weakly on the shoulder of his equally skinny mother, with empty and confused eyes. Moaning on the side squinted his eyes and sighed, "I'm afraid it's not as simple as a famine." Giving out porridge in times of hardship is also a common act of kindness in ancient China. But although giving out porridge is easy, it also has a set of rules. Normally, Most of these porridge distribution points are set up outside the city. First, the outside of the city is relatively open, which is convenient for people to gather in groups. Second, it can guide the refugees to the outside of the city to prevent these desperate refugees from causing trouble in the city. Such a large number of refugees is a potential security risk anywhere. In ancient times, if they encountered some cruel officials, they might even use force to suppress and disperse them. Allowing a large number of refugees to enter the city means that either the rulers of this city are hopelessly stupid, or that the refugees have reasons to enter the city. No one present as a fool. Judging from the information collected so far, the wisdom of the aliens is definitely not low, even if it is only compared with the Qin and Han dynasties. The wisdom level of the alien superstructure can be considered relatively civilized. In this case, the ruler of the city is either as stupid as a husky, or has a city damage value system in hand. Otherwise, there is only one possibility: the refugees may encounter serious disasters if they stay outside the city, thus forcing the ruler of the city to accept these refugees. These refugees cannot stay outside the city, and coupled with a series of previous analyses of the city wall, Linley feels that some truths are becoming clearer and clearer. But this is not enough. Analysis is always just analysis. To reach an accurate conclusion, a solid hammer is needed. On the other side, Julian gave the grain buns to an elderly couple, and with the other party's thousands of thanks, he turned and walked towards the 8-story mansion. The walls of this mansion are high and deep. According to the data detected by the drone, the area of the entire mansion is close to 60,000 square meters, which is the same size as the famous Prince Guang's mansion in the imperial capital. The main gate of the mansion faces south, with a height of about 5 meters, and there is a wide bluestone road in front of the gate. I don't know what kind of craftsmanship this bluestone road was made of. It looks like it is made entirely of gravel, but it is unusually flat when walking on it, and there is no bump at all. The length of the bluestone road is about 100 meters. The left side connects to the main road in the city, and the right side leads to the side door of the mansion. The main door is located in the middle of the road, and the door is magnificent and luxurious. When Julian came to the vicinity of the mansion, he happened to see a group of refugees gathered at the side door. Most of these refugees leaned forward, waving their hands wildly, and shouting something at a man with a goatee who looked like a butler. Although there were many servants around the man with a goatee, they surrounded these refugees but did not drive them away, as if they were controlling order. Among the refugees, sometimes someone was selected by the middle-aged man, and with ecstasy, he left the crowd, thanked him profusely, and walked into the side door under the guidance of the servant. Julian also noticed that the clothes of these servants were exactly the same as those of the people at the relief point before. In broad daylight, there were many passers-by watching around. In addition to the good impression left by the relief point before, Julian thought for a moment and walked towards the side door. Wei Lianzhang is 62 years old this year and has been the steward of the Wei Mansion for 25 years. Since the year he became the steward, he would stand on this step every time at this time. Some people were temporarily selected from the refugees to help transport some materials in the form of work relief. In fact, those refugees could not help much. On average, 2 refugees could be as efficient as one young and strong man. But work relief is the ancestral precept passed down by the Wei Mansion after all, and these refugees are indeed pitiful, so this practice has been retained. After all, every person who can be helped is a person who can be helped. Oh my god, I don't know how many people will die this time, Wei Lianzhang sighed, and then continued to repeat what he had said countless times to the new wave of refugees. Everyone listen carefully, the Wei Mansion has requirements for selecting people. Not everyone can be selected. Don't worry if you are not selected, you can go to the porridge shop in Xiangxiangfang, where there are hot porridge and grain buns to fill your stomach. After saying this, Wei Lianzhang took a water bag from his waist and was about to moisten his dry throat when he suddenly caught a glimpse of a person in front of him. It was a dark-faced man. He was not very tall, but his figure was well proportioned. Compared with the refugees around him, he could be called strong. Work relief, as the literal meaning. First of all, you have to work, and then you can get relief money. Therefore, unlike a pure charity such as distributing porridge and food, the Wei Mansion has some requirements for the physical fitness of the candidates for work relief. For those who were skinny and even had only half a breath left, it was hard for them not to be crushed to death by the goods, let alone work. In addition, his eyes were not as empty and confused as those of other refugees, So Wei Lianzhang immediately decided, that little brother, come up. Seeing Wei Lianzhang pointing his finger at him, Julian once again used the Ababa method to show that he was a mute, and then he was successfully led into the mansion by a servant. After successfully sneaking into the mansion, Julian followed the servant through the courtyard and finally arrived at an open space that looked like a martial arts field. Because the courtyard wall blocked part of the view, the first thing Julian saw was a corner of the martial arts field. Hundreds of refugees gathered in the corner, some carrying small items alone, and 7 or 8 people carrying heavy objects together, filing out from a warehouse-like place in the corner and walking in another direction. Julian immediately understood in his heart this should be the next job he would do. Then, he cast his sights towards the center of the martial arts arena. The next second, his pupils suddenly contracted and his blood pressure soared. It wasn't just Julian who was shocked. At the same time, at the Xinhuo Command Center, 18 kilometers away, seeing the real-time images sent back, everyone was also shocked. Lin Li's clenched teeth loosened, and his teeth uncontrollably and heavily embedded in his lips. Lin Li seemed not to feel the pain, and his eyes were fixed on the picture in front of him. In the center of the martial arts arena, there were 3 old men whose faces could not be seen clearly. They were sitting on 3 swords with cold and sharp light in a trance. These 3 swords were 5 meters off the ground and floated in the air. At this time, the Earth time was 5:02 on July 18, 2022. At this moment, the heart of China, a touch of bright red bloomed proudly in the wind. The rising sun finally saw the extraordinary. Chapter 11 confirmed. Since the beginning of written records, civilization on Earth has never given up the desire for extraordinary powers. In Western civilization, the representatives of extraordinary powers are mostly magic and superpowers, such as witches in the Western Middle Ages or superhumans in the Marvel world. In Chinese civilization, the representative of extraordinary powers is immortals. The image of a chick-sword immortal with a pot of muddy wine on his waist, white clothes fluttering, and a sword riding the wind is one of the standard perceptions of immortals from ancient times to the present. For example, when describing a person with handsome appearance and free and easy temperament, the word exiled immortal is often used. What? You said that the word often is inappropriate because people with such temperament are rare in reality? Nonsense. Look at my comment area on Dikidian. Which reader does not have the temperament of an exiled immortal? Let's get back to the point. In short, these 3 old men on the martial arts field almost perfectly fit all the fantasies of Chinese culture about immortals. This kind of picture can only be seen on the screen and imagined in dreams on weekdays. Now that they are truly in front of everyone, how can they not be excited? It is no exaggeration to say that when seeing the 3 old men flying across the sky with swords, everyone's DNA moved. This is destined to be a scene that will be recorded in the history books. Lin Li and others not only witnessed extraordinary power, but this scene also represents that the ancient Oriental nation of China has touched the possibility of a certain level of life transition. Even if for now, this possibility is full of unknowns, and there is still a long way to go before it is officially transformed into an opportunity. But no matter how difficult the road is, it is still a journey in front of us, at least countless times stronger than the illusory fantasy. In the mansion, due to his current identity, Julian did not get too many opportunities to observe the 3 old men up close. Under the arrangement of the blue-clothed servant, he was assigned to a group of refugees, responsible for carrying some smaller wooden boxes. The refugees in the same group were all men, with rough and dark skin, messy hair and beards, and at least 4 or 5 patches on their clothes. If they were in a different environment, these refugees would look almost the same as the simple and taciturn migrant workers, except for their figures and clothes. In addition, Julian also noticed that they worked very hard and almost no one was lazy. Although they occasionally raised their heads when they took a break to take a breath, they looked at the 3 old men in the center of the martial arts arena. But they never showed any surprise or resentment, but mostly showed gratitude. Some refugees even knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the center of the arena. Not showing surprise means that for these refugees, extraordinary power is not a very high-level secret. In other words, the concept of extraordinary is widely known in the lower classes of foreign society, and almost everyone knows it. Not showing resentment and showing gratitude means that the current situation of these refugees is probably unrelated to these extraordinary people, at least in the city. There may be a ruling relationship between civilians and extraordinary people, but it will never rise to the level of oppression and cruelty. The former is conducive to the collection of extraordinary information, while the latter is of great significance to the decision-making of the rabbits' base camp. The rabbits respect and recognize the sovereignty and national dignity of foreign civilizations, that's for sure. However, if the ruling form of this civilization is like that in Greek mythology, the upper class oppresses the people with almost no human rights, and regards the lower class as pig food, then the rabbits will inevitably have to cosplay Prometheus, help the lower class of foreign countries steal fire, and have a physical conversation with the upper class. Fortunately, according to the information collected so far, the extraordinary class of foreign civilizations looks pretty good. Not only did they not oppress civilians, but they also provided refugees with a certain degree of shelter. This is a behavior that conforms to the rabbit's concept, and there is even a slight possibility that it will become a certain basis for future contact between the two sides. Just as Julian was thinking, suddenly a refugee said a few words to him that he couldn't understand, and then made a gesture of moving things. Julian then remembered that he still had a task to do, so he smiled at the other party, carried the box and followed the crowd. The box that Julian's group was responsible for was about 1 meter long, and the weight of the materials inside was about 20 kilograms. The materials in the box kept making clanging sounds as they walked. As an elite scout, Julian was very familiar with this kind of collision with a distinct metallic texture. How could he not be familiar with it? More than a day ago, he passed through the light gate with a bunch of these things. There is no doubt that the box contained controlled knives. Or to put it in a more appropriate word, cold weapons. The location where these cold weapons needed to be delivered was also confirmed half an hour later, a warehouse on the city wall. This city wall is located in the west of the city, an area that Julian had not explored before. When Julian came to the city wall, a large group of soldiers wearing armor passed by him with a solemn look. Julian kept his pace constant, but his mind was quickly making judgments. Are these soldiers training? No, if they were training, the atmosphere wouldn't be so solemn. Are they preparing for war? While Julian was thinking, he soon saw another familiar person, the goateed butler who called him into the mansion, Wei Lianshang. At this time, this butler Wei was standing at the front of the city wall. With a serious face, he gestured something to several young men and women in gorgeous clothes. Soon, these young men and women took out a stack of light yellow paper and threw it gently. I saw these papers suddenly shine brightly, dancing in the air with some extremely mysterious rhythm. After a few breaths, these papers seemed to have consciousness, flying evenly in all directions, and finally tightly attached to the ground. Butler Wei nodded with satisfaction, and led a group of young men and women to the next target. Julian saw the scene in his eyes, and the camera on his collar also faithfully transmitted the picture back to the rear. 12 kilometers away, at the Xinhao team's base camp. Wang Qiang flattened her left hand and slammed her right hand upwards. It's confirmed, there will definitely be a war. Lin Li looked at this funny guy speechlessly. Anyone with a brain can see it, okay? Don't you see any other information? Wang Qiang spread her hands neatly. No. Lin Li's forehead was immediately throbbing with veins, and he picked up a pen from the side. Hey, where's the ballpoint pen? Wang Qiang smiled triumphantly, revealing 2 small tiger teeth. Director Lin, don't look for it. I just took your ballpoint pen away. I guarantee that there will be no trace of it on the table. I checked it very carefully. Ouch! Lin Li calmly stuffed a Parker pen back into his chest pocket, and decided that apart from the scientific research task, he would no longer have any expectations for this funny guy. Then he turned to Manning and said, Professor Ma, what do you say? Manning was already accustomed to the master and apprentice's tricks, and said with a smile, okay, then I'll talk about my humble opinion. In my opinion, in addition to Comrade Xiao Wang's talk about fighting, we can also get 2 key information. First, judging from the clothes and behavior of those young men and women, this city should have a lot of extraordinary power, and they are gathered in the form of families. Of course, the depth of each person's power needs to be discussed separately. At present, the only ones known to have the ability to fly are the 3 old men in the center of the mansion. Secondly, during Comrade Julian's exploration, we never saw any shadow of any government-like institutions from beginning to end. The relief point was opened by the Bajin mansion, and the military equipment transportation was also done by the refugees attracted by this family. Even the deployment and mobilization of the city defense were directly responsible by them. So can we make such a judgment? There is no government-like institution in this city, and its ruling power actually belongs to this family? Even bolder, Is this world dominated by family rule, and there is no concept of national power? Chapter 12 Preparation of Base Camp. At the same time, at the headquarters, Qin Zhendong, who had not slept all night, rubbed his temples with a little fatigue, and said to Chang Qixiang, "Comrade Qixiang, how is the situation outside?" Chang Qixiang replied, "Boss Qin, it has been a day since the light gate first appeared. The clearing plan is going smoothly. We have contacted the heads of various shops one after another. The entire commercial street will be moved to the Huangjiang district with a better location. In addition, with the assistance of the tax and industrial and commercial departments, we will issue closure compensation to each store." Most of the shop owners agreed very readily. Qin Zhendong was a little surprised and frowned and said, "Most of them agree? That means there are still a few who disagree? Why don't the shop owners accept such a generous closure subsidy?" According to the plan discussed by several bigwigs, the entire commercial street will be listed as a confidential area in the future, and all the shops in the street will be relocated and resettled. It's a coincidence. Due to well-known historical reasons, the ownership of the mansions and streets in the vicinity is all in the hands of the government, and there is no such thing as individual landlords. Therefore, the process of relocating a store is very simple. There is no need to consider the intention of individual landlords. As long as the consent of the store owner is obtained, it will be fine. Of course, the official treatment for relocating stores is also very generous. After the relocation, Huangjiang district is the economic core area of Shanghai, and the average daily traffic is more than 3 times that of the Huaihai commercial district. There are many people who earn 1,000,000 yuan a year just by selling tofu pudding. At the same time, the official will also bear the decoration costs of the store and exempt the land rent for 2 years. During the closure of the store, the official will also issue closure compensation of twice the turnover according to the tax return records of each store last year. It is no exaggeration to say that as long as there was no tax evasion last year, each store can make at least 5 years of net profit in this relocation and resettlement. So Qin Zhendong is quite puzzled. With such generous treatment and sincerity, and there is no situation of opening a store in their own house, why do some store owners still disagree to relocate the store? Facing Qin Zhendong's question, Chang Qixiang's face suddenly became a little weird. Well, there are several shop owners who are elderly locals in Shanghai. The average assets under their names are in 8 figures, the first digits are quite large. They opened the shop just to sell some buns to kill time, so they are not very interested in the business suspension subsidy. But don't worry, Boss Qin, these uncles and aunts have been appeased. Qin Zhendong was silent for a while, and decided not to delve into the unique group of people such as the demolition households, and continued to ask, "What about public opinion?" When it comes to his old business of public opinion information, Chang Qixiang seems much more confident. The public opinion has been communicated with major official media. In 2 hours, the Shanghai Power Grid will hold a press conference to announce that the underground core optical cable, that is, GF optical cable, those 2 words are easy to write, 404, will be upgraded and renovated in advance. This was originally an upgrade task to be carried out in October this year. The bidding process was completed as early as last year. The spokesperson for the press conference is an experienced old comrade and is quite reliable. Announcing the upgrade of the optical cable to the outside world is also the public opinion attack plan set by the core layer. Since there are so many people involved in the Otherworld project, using a city construction project involving a lot of manpower and material resources to cover it up is the best method at present. Once the surrounding isolation walls are raised and the spire used to block the aerial view is covered, a closed super-large venue is completed, which is equivalent to a whole year of traffic control and martial law. Although this may bring some inconvenience to the citizens' travel, it is limited to some inconveniences. Partition walls are too common in this infrastructure-crazy country. Most citizens will consciously take a detour when they see the sign of XX construction, and they don't even complain. After all, everyone has personally experienced the dividends after the completion of various civil affairs facilities. 2 words, it's really delicious. In addition, as a construction site of an urban construction project, it is reasonable for the rabbits to drive some large trucks in, right? If you want to ask what is in the trucks, don't ask, just ask express delivery and blasting materials. As for whether the frequent entry and exit of trucks will attract the attention of some people with ulterior motives, don't forget, this is Shanghai. It is a megacity that has been under construction since the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China and has not stopped until 2022. As we all know, there are two things that Shanghai lacks the most: people and cars. According to the 2020 Shanghai Municipal Statistics Report, there are as many as 44,000 large trucks entering and leaving Shanghai every day, and the total number of vehicles is close to 110,000. Take the Phase II construction site of Line 19 under construction in Shanghai as an example. This phase of the project was undertaken by China Railway Group. The second phase cost more than 27 billion yuan. The construction width of the entire project is 140 meters and the length is 6.6 kilometers. From the progress report released by China Railway Group, it can be seen that there are more than 1,000 large-scale heavy-duty trucks entering and leaving the construction site every day. This number of vehicles is not announced randomly. For daily traffic of such super-large projects, the construction party must declare and publicize in advance after winning the bid, which involves the coordination of transportation, municipal affairs and other aspects. After all, trucks are prohibited on roads in many places in Shanghai. For another example, according to the original plan, the True Optical Cable Upgrade project was supposed to start construction in October. The municipal government announced that the average daily planned traffic volume is 400 times, which is the line of S20 Outer Ring Road, Yangpu Bridge Ground Section, Huqinping Highway. The daily traffic volume of 400 times means that about 200 trips of materials are planned to be transported every day. The above information is published on the municipal official website. Not fabricated by the author, a 13.5-meter truck has a load capacity of 34 tons. Among these 200 trips of cargo transportation, even if 1/3 of the carrying capacity is freed up, the materials that can be transported to the other world in one day are as much as more than 2,000 tons. A tank only weighs 30 to 40 tons. If there is really an emergency, the rabbits grit their teeth. It is not impossible to transport 10,000 tons of materials a day, and there will be no abnormality in the frequency of entry and exit. As for the shipping route of these materials, it is even simpler. In this post-Rotterdam era, the title of Shanghai port as the world's first port is not exaggerated. The throughput of Hong Kong has ranked first in the world for 11 consecutive years, and the average throughput of the whole port is as high as 776 million tons per year. A little bit of this throughput is enough for the construction site to digest for a while. Therefore, in some novels about conquering other worlds, the rabbits leaked information because of the abnormal transportation of dozens of tons of materials. That's a joke. If the transportation of materials is so easy to leak, then the rabbits' efforts on the 3-line depth would be in vain. Decades ago, the rabbits were quietly conducting research in the Northwest. During this period, under the name of the Northwest Construction, more than hundreds of thousands of tons of materials were transported through the 3-line depth. But until October 16, 1964, before the dragon roar that shook the world, had the research project been leaked because of the problem of material transportation? This was the case decades ago, let alone now. As long as you go around the 3-line depth and follow the Yangtze River to the East China Sea, you can clean up all the materials. After reporting the progress of the preparations for the work at hand, Chang Qixiang asked about Qin Hendong's health and said goodbye. About a minute after Chang Qixiang left, Qin Hendong's secretary walked in from outside the door. "Boss Qin, the comrades from the army are here." Chapter 13, Vigorous and Courageous. The person in charge from the army was named Yan, and his full name was Yan Shaoxin. His specific position was the official commander of a certain armored infantry regiment, with a military rank of 2 stars and 3 stars. Yan Shaoxin exuded a capable temperament from head to toe. After entering, he saluted Qin Hendong. "Hello, Boss Qin." "Hello, Captain Yan." Qin Hendong stood up and shook hands with Yan Shaoxin. Although the administrative levels of the two sides were very different, the military and the political were two systems after all, so Qin Hendong's behavior was naturally more formal. "Captain Yan, how is the troop assembly going?" Yan Shaoxin was as tall as a pine tree, and he answered neatly, "Boss Qin, according to the military order of the Corps Layer, our regiment headquarters has a fixed number of 2,300 soldiers, and they have all been assembled. The vehicles are being transported, and it is expected that the team can set off within 2 hours." Not long ago, when they learned that there was a high probability that a war would break out in the other world, especially when this war was likely to involve extraordinary powers, the rabbits immediately decided to send a top-notch force into the other world just in case. God has mercy on me. When they learned of this decision of the core layer, several rabbits in charge of guns were so excited that their ears popped up. Wow! The first organized troop to set foot in the alien world was an honor that would go down in history. In modern times, it was called the first step to set foot in the alien world. In ancient times, it was called opening up new territories. As a soldier, how could you not fight for such an honor? So, one said that the rapid reaction force of the XX army was well equipped, another said that the alien world had many mountains, so of course the motorized infantry special operations brigade of the XX division should be sent, and some even shouted that the elite combined brigade of the XX corps should be selected. In short, the competition was very lively. Finally, a certain big rabbit couldn't stand it anymore and slammed the table on the spot. Stop arguing, I think the armored infantry regiment near Shenzhen is good, with excellent equipment, strong combat effectiveness, and close to Shenzhen. Let's go with it. Note, after the military reform, the field army basically no longer has a regiment-level organization, but retains a regiment-level organization, such as the Border Defense Regiment, the Land Aviation Regiment, etc. The armored regiment is actually responsible for the garrison of Shenzhen, so don't say that there is no regiment organization now. The organization and organization are not the same thing. The big man made the final decision, and naturally no one else had any objections. In this way, Yan Xiaoxin's armored infantry regiment finally stood out and became the lucky one envied by countless people. As a modern elite soldier, Yan Xiaoxin's armored infantry regiment has a total of 3 combat modules: armored vehicle module, infantry module and main battle tank module. According to the organization, these 3 modules are divided into 3 armored infantry battalions, 1 tank battalion, 1 air defense company, and 3 direct companies. The number of armored vehicles in the entire regiment is close to 100. These armored vehicles can not only supplement large-caliber machine firepower, but also have the function of transporting troops, and can carry a large number of soldiers for long-distance raids. The tank battalion has 40 main battle tanks, although this number seems a bit small. In the regimental-level units, this number of tanks accounts for a large proportion, not to mention the rabbit, even on a global scale, except for the armored regiment under the 4th Mechanized Infantry Division of the Eagle, and the bear that has long disappeared in history. There are almost few armored regiments that can achieve this configuration. If it were not for the garrison of Shenzhen, Yan Xiaoxin's men would not be equipped with so many tank combat forces. More importantly, the tank battalion under Yan Xiaoxin is equipped with all 99A main battle tanks. The 99A main battle tank is the most advanced tank model in China. In terms of configuration alone, the 99A is much stronger than the modified 59, and it has not yet been put into service in the entire army. 99A is equipped with advanced electronic track positioning technology, which is as accurate as the gods in PlayerUnknown's battlegrounds within a range of 2,000 meters. It is nicknamed the Asian Land Warfare Cheater. Oh no, the Land Warfare King. With the 3 combat modules fully powered, Yan Xiaoxin's armored infantry regiment can run more than 400 kilometers a day. Among the teams of the same structure in China, the comprehensive combat power of the entire regiment is low-key, which is called the top 5. In fact, it is second to none. At the same time, the soldiers who can be selected for this armored infantry regiment are all loyal fighters who are qualified in all aspects. Everyone is like a dragon. They have high mobility, strong combat effectiveness, and firm team beliefs. This is the reason why this armored infantry regiment was selected. However, due to the limited assembly time and conditions, it is impossible to bring all the equipment of the entire regiment into the alien world. These tanks, armored vehicles, only about 1/3 can be successfully transported to the outside of the light gate. These combat vehicles cannot be blatantly driven from the road. They must be loaded in containers and transported by large trucks with specifications of more than 13 meters. It is also a hassle to unload after arriving at the scene. In addition, time was of the essence, so the final assembly consisted of 37 armored vehicles and 16 main battle tanks. In addition, 2 search and rescue helicopters, model AC-311A, went to the other world with Yan Xiaoxin's armored infantry regiment. Yes, one of the famous AC-4 gentlemen. The reason why the headquarters chose the dual-use AC-311A instead of better-performing military transport helicopters such as the Z-8 and Z-20. First, the AC-311A is easier to mobilize. There are several of them at the airport of the Hufei Group, and the process is much easier than mobilizing military aircraft. Second, whether it is the Z8 or the Z20, the blade length is almost 10 meters. Don't forget that the width of the optical gate is only 8 meters. Compared with the Big Brother military transport helicopters that start at 10 tons, the AC-311A weighs only 2 tons, and the blade length is just over 7 meters, which can just pass through the 8-meter wide optical gate. Yan Xiaoxin had no objection to this. Anyway, these two helicopters would not be used to deploy soldiers or conduct air strikes, so who cares? That's right. Compared with the armored infantry regiment with certain combat deployment, the main task of these two AC-311A is not to provide air fire support, but to be responsible for a deeper exploration of the map of the alien world. Previously, although the Xinhao team had already surveyed and sampled the surrounding terrain and landforms through military drones, and even discovered a lot of very important information. However, due to its own conditions, even if the name was prefixed with the word military, these drones could only touch the corners of a radius of 20 kilometers at most. In the initial stage of the exploration of the alien world, this exploration range was naturally sufficient. Because at that time, the rabbits knew nothing about the alien world, it was impossible to send helicopters directly to rush over. At that time, they didn't even know whether the alien world had gravity. But with the successful completion of the first two missions, especially after the discovery of the human city, the coverage radius of 20 kilometers could no longer meet the needs of the rabbits. In addition, satellite communication has not yet been put on the agenda. After all, there are 3 suns in the sky, so sending helicopters to expand the exploration area is imperative. AC-311A can fly 640 kilometers at an altitude of 3,200 meters. That is, it can almost cross the scope of an ordinary province, and its ability to collect information is far superior to that of drones. According to a certain big rabbit, at least we have to figure out the source of the refugees. The families in other worlds are preparing for war, and we don't even know what their opponents look like. This is absolutely impossible. Outside the tent of the Shanghai base camp, Yan Xiaoxin's armored infantry regiment has been fully assembled, and a huge crowd has gathered in front of the ruins of Wu Fan's milk tea shop. Well, ruins. Not long ago, in order to facilitate the transportation of combat vehicles and helicopters, the Shanghai base camp decisively demolished Wu Fan's milk tea shop, leaving only a clean big light gate. Of course, Wu Fan's compensation will naturally not be less. Yan Xiaoxin stood at the front of the team, looking at his soldiers. The average age of these guys is 23 years old, and the average time they have been in the army is 4.2 years. Compared with their peers, their lives are less leisurely. As the elite among the elite, the Happy Water Fat House emoticon package is almost insulated from their lives. Their main theme on weekdays is training, training, and training. Look at these great men, whose eyes are not pure and wild. The scorching sun tanned their skin and melted their blood. The mottled impurities were completely removed, and the clear and flawless love in their hearts was only for this country. Yan Xiaoxin took a deep breath and looked at this group of elite soldiers with firm faces and leaping fire in their eyes. He firmly believed in his heart. One day, this fire will rise above the 9 heavens, turn into the fire of national rejuvenation, and sweep the world. Everyone, let's go. At 8:30 in the morning, the first organized unit of the rabbit officially set out. Heroic and full of vigor, he crossed a light gate and descended into another world. Everyone, please give me some recommendation votes or monthly votes. The monthly votes are doubled these days. Chapter 14 Takeoff. When Yan Xiaoxin led his soldiers through the light gate, Lin Li and others had already cleared a large open space in the camp to prevent the troops from trampling due to lack of space after passing through. When the troops arrived one after another, Lin Li stepped forward and stretched out his hand. Hello, Captain Yan, I am Lin Li, the person in charge of Xinhao camp, and the person next to me is the captain of the Special Operations Brigade, Colonel Lin Ziming. Yan Xiaoxin had done some homework before coming, and naturally knew about Lin Li's identity. He shook hands with Lin Li politely. Hello, Director Lin, I am Yan Xiaoxin. According to the instructions of the General Staff, all the actions of our regiment in the alien world this time will be subject to your instructions. Then Yan Xiaoxin turned his head and saluted Lin Ziming. Colonel Lin, we meet again. As members of the same garrison system, Yan Xiaoxin and Lin Ziming often deal with each other on weekdays. When they held that meeting a few years ago, they were in the guest house in the next room, and they had a deep friendship with each other. Lin Ziming laughed and returned the greeting. Old Yan, you got a good job this time. Tisk tisk, you are the first regiment level unit to set foot in the alien world. I don't know how many people will envy you to death. Yan Xiaoxin crossed his hands in front of his chest and snorted arrogantly. Envy them if you want. Who told them to be far away and not have such good soldiers under their command? Lin Ziming smiled and patted his shoulder, and said nothing more. In fact, whether it is Lin Ziming or Yan Xiaoxin, they are very clear. This is an alien world with extraordinary power. The so-called good job and envy are just free and easy jokes among soldiers. It is true that setting foot in the alien world represents glory, but it may also represent bloodshed and sacrifice. Opportunities are always accompanied by risks. But they still came, and they were not afraid. This is the consciousness of soldiers. As a large number of supplies and personnel landed, the Xinhuo camp suddenly became much more crowded. Fortunately, the valley where the camp is located is very deep and wide. According to the arrangement of the command center, the newly arrived soldiers were placed on both sides of the camp, and the outermost edge was parked with main battle tanks and armored vehicles. These tanks not only served as garrisons, but also directly connected to the road out of the valley. Both defense and mobility were taken into account. Lin Li and others, accompanied by several technicians, came to the two AC-311A helicopters. Lin Li stood outside the hatch and peeked inside, then turned to a mechanic and asked, Master Chen, has the helicopter been debugged? The mechanic named Chen from Hufei Group put the wrench aside, pointed to the flashing lights on the dashboard, and said, the automatic tilter, collective pitch control lever, and barometric altimeter have all been checked, and the performance is normal in the alien world. Lin Li continued to ask, the alien world has not yet launched a satellite, so beat-out positioning cannot be used for the time being. What about the navigation problem of the aircraft? The mechanic named Chen pointed to Zheng Guchen beside him and said with a smile, this is thanks to Director Zheng's team. Thanks to the measurement results of the Institute of Physics. The Mechanical Research Institute used the Cube III supercomputer to re-optimize the accelerometer and gyroscope based on the information such as the alien world's gravitational constant sent back in the first phase. At the same time, the common filter algorithm was used to optimize the existing magnetic compass navigation. In this way, combined with the VAL navigation technology reserved by our Hufei, the two helicopters can use the inertial navigation system, magnetic compass navigation, and VAL navigation system at the same time. Although it is not as accurate as GPS navigation, and long-distance flights have certain risks, short and medium-distance flights within 300 kilometers are still very easy. This range is enough for now. Lin Li nodded, not quite understanding. His specialty is biology, and he is only half-baked in physics. But since the mechanic surnamed Chen dared to say so, Zheng Guchen on the side did not object. Then I think there should be no big problem with navigation. In addition, since AC-311A is a light aircraft, the requirements for the takeoff and landing platform are not high. Lin Li directly arranged for people to clear a large piece of open space at the edge of the valley as a helicopter landing pad. After cleaning the sand and gravel, the soil stabilizer was spread, and then the special cement was spread on it. In less than 5 minutes, a clean and stable temporary landing pad was completed. That's right, the solidification time is less than 5 minutes. The special cement used for flood control and embankment reinforcement is so unreasonable. Half an hour later, the temporary ground control tower built by Shanghai Fei Group sent a message. The high-frequency omnidirectional beacon of the VAL navigation system was successfully transmitted and received. The crew was in place, and the two AC-311A helicopters were ready to leave at any time. Lin Li immediately issued an order. 2 helicopters take off immediately to carry out the exploration mission, with an exploration radius of 150 kilometers. In case of emergency, they are allowed to return early. Beep, beep, beep. The blades of the helicopter rotated at high speed, rolling up a strong wind. The height of the fuselage slowly stretched, and finally flew out from the valley and gradually disappeared into the sky. As a helicopter pilot, the 44-year-old Yao Rong has a brilliant resume. The chief test pilot of Shanghai Fei Group, the leader of the aerospace group of the rescue team, with more than 10,000 hours of flight time, has participated in many large-scale civilian and official search and rescue missions, and has been commended in the Great Wall as an outstanding representative of the industry. In the past half of his flying career, Yao Rong has flown almost all over the country. He has seen the grandeur of the East China Sea and the beauty of the plateau. I've had hot pot in Sichuan, fried dumplings in Shanghai, stewed pork in Yanjing, and eaten Fujian's rice in Guangdong. Yes, rice and clay pot. In short, I've been to many places. But to be honest, this is the first time Yao Rong has flown over the territory of another world in decades. According to the headquarters plan, the helicopter driven by Yao Rong and his partner Yu Guanghu will explore the south, which is the direction of the city. Tower, this is 8,633. The current flight altitude is 3,700 meters, and the straight line distance to the camp is about 55 kilometers. The dial in the plane shows normal. The signal is stable. Does the command center have any new instructions? 8,633. This is the tower. The command center has no new instructions for the time being. Please continue flying at the current position. Received. After hanging up the communication, Yu Guanghu turned his head and said to Yao Rong with a smile, "You never thought, old Yao? We have been partners for most of our lives, and we actually have the opportunity to fly in another world like this. My kid likes to read novels about other worlds the most, but I guess this brat would never dream that when he was secretly reading novels in his bed, his dad really went to another world." Yao Rong is close to Yu Guanghu in age, and his children are of the same generation. They are both in their middle school years. Upon hearing this, he also said, "Everyone's kid loves to watch these. Just 2 weeks ago, he stole the black strap of my watch and wore it to show off at school, saying it was a 10,000-year soul ring." Yao Rong shook his head and sighed, "What a pity. We signed a confidentiality agreement. I'm afraid we won't be able to talk about the things in the other world in this lifetime." Yu Guanghu grinned. Compared to his partner who was a little depressed, he was much more optimistic. Not necessarily. The authorities are obviously trying to develop the other world. When the time is right, they may make it public. "Hey, Lao Yao, what is that?" Yao Rong looked in the direction Yu Guanghu pointed. The next second, Yao Rong grabbed the communication equipment and almost roared, Tower, this is 8,633. Anomalies have been found on the ground. Anomalies have been found on the ground. A large number of huge monsters are moving towards the city. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Beast Tide, the second force in the other world. Upon learning that the dispatched crew had made a major discovery, Lin Li and others immediately rushed to the temporary ground control tower. "Are there any live images?" After arriving at the scene, Lin Li asked Bu Binghu, the person in charge of the temporary ground control tower from Shanghai Aircraft Group. Bu Binghu shook his head. "No, the communication satellite and the long-distance base station in the field transmit signals. The communication team can only restore the picture by analyzing the electromagnetic waves of the directional signal transmitter on the helicopter. In order to prevent electromagnetic wave interference, we have not turned on signal transmission before. Fortunately, Captain Yao and his team are within 100 kilometers from the camp. It will probably take a few minutes." Lin Li pondered for a while. "Is Captain Yao still online?" "Always." Lin Li stretched out his hand. "Give me the communicator." Taking the communication equipment handed over by Bu Binghu, Lin Li spoke calmly. "Captain Yao, I am Lin Li from the command center. Is your crew in danger of life at present?" Yao Rong's reply came quickly. Reporting to the command center, "These strange beasts do not seem to have the ability to fly. My partner and I are not in danger of life for the time being." "Very good." Lin Li nodded, and continued, "Captain Yao, the command center's picture is still being analyzed. Can you please describe the situation of these strange beasts? For example, their shape and number, etc. Do not need to be too detailed, just a general description is enough." As the leader of the aerospace team of the Blue Sky Rescue Team, it is a routine skill to judge ground information by sight. Yao Rong quickly replied, "This batch of alien beasts is huge in number, and it consists of 3 large races. The largest number is a kind of black reptile snake. I have observed it with a military telescope. The body length of these snakes is generally about 4 or 5 meters. Led by 3 extreme individuals with a body length of nearly 20 meters, the total number is about several thousand, and the formation is quite terrifying. The second race is somewhat similar to the bison on Earth. but its body size is much larger than that of the bison. And it has 2 heads, a bunch of bone spurs around its neck, sharp teeth exposed, and there are about a few hundred of them. There is also a small race, about dozens of them, but they are generally tall, like the giant monsters that appear in some Western movies. The height is about 9 meters, close to 3 stories high. The 3 tribes formed a giant camp with a length of about 400 meters and a width of nearly 3 kilometers, moving forward at a speed of about 15 kilometers per hour. In addition, these alien beast formations carry a large number of large numbers. Seeing Yao Rong hesitate, Lin Li immediately asked, "A lot of what?" "Corpses. Human corpses. And it's obvious that they are used as rations." Yao Rong's reply made the command center fall into silence, and if they don't change their direction and don't rest during the period, they are expected to reach the target city in 3 hours. Lin Li raised his head and looked at the other main leaders of the camp, and said slowly, "It seems that the enemy that the city is defending is mostly this group of strange beasts." Zheng Gucheng suddenly pulled up a simple topographic map and gestured on it with his hands. "Our camp is here and the city is to our south. The group of strange beasts is to the south of the city. If we are well prepared, we will most likely not face the group of strange beasts. After all, we don't know the combat effectiveness of the extraordinary forces in this world." The people present were not fools, and naturally understood the meaning of Zheng Gucheng's words: avoid fighting, and don't help each other. This is a very conservative proposal. After all, the 2 sides about to fight are beasts on one side and humans on the other. If the monsters were repelled by the city, then everything would be fine. But if the city was breached by the monsters and a tragedy of monsters slaughtering the city occurred, then the wait-and-see attitude would be a test of people's hearts. But on the other hand, as Zheng Gucheng said, when you don't understand the extraordinary power of this world, avoiding war is also the safest choice. This plan involves a contest between rationality and emotion. For a while, everyone's expressions were different. Some nodded in agreement, some had expressionless faces and could not tell what they were thinking, and a few people frowned, obviously disagreeing with this plan. This small temporary ground support tower suddenly fell into silence. But soon, Pu Binghu's slightly excited voice broke the weirdness. "Captain Lin, there is a signal. The video can be played normally now." Lin Li patted Zheng Gucheng on the shoulder and motioned everyone to gather. "Let's take a look at the video sent back by Captain Yao and the others first. Let's talk about a plan after everyone has seen it." The first person to rush to the screen was still a funny guy named Wang. As soon as he saw the picture clearly, he took a big step back. "Oh my god." Lin Li was also startled. "What are you yelling about?" Wang Qiang pointed at the huge pile of giant snakes on the screen and said with a sad face, "I have late-stage trypophobia." Zheng Gucheng, who was standing aside, saw this and didn't know what he thought of. Suddenly he turned his head and looked at his disciple, Zhou Yuangxin, the leader of the physics team, with relief. Fortunately, his disciple has always been very honest and not so funny. Zhou Yuangxin, surrounded by a bunch of big guys, Lin Li resisted the urge to clean up the mess, took a deep breath, and cast his eyes on the screen. After seeing the picture clearly, Lin Li and others' reactions were not as outrageous as Wang Qiang's, but they all took a deep breath and almost blurted out, "It's so terrifying." As Yao Rong said, the width of the entire beast array is nearly 3 kilometers. It can be clearly seen that there are 3 main races: giant black snakes, 2-headed bulls, and giant monsters. In addition, at the outermost part of the array, there are some scattered creatures following the array. There are 8 leading creatures in the array, including 3 scaly giant snakes about 20 meters long, 4 purple 2-headed monster bulls, and a giant monster with sharp horns on its head. Lin Li's hands trembled a little. There is no doubt that this is another discovery that subverts his cognition. Take the 3 giant snakes as an example. Don't look at the rumors that there are often 55-meter giant snakes found somewhere on the earth. A search on your mobile phone can also find that the length of the Guinness World Record for snakes is 14.85 meters. But in fact, these rumors are all lies. The so-called 14.85-meter-long snake is called Osmanthus. In January 2004, the Daily Mail measured its length at 6.7 meters. The length of 14.85 meters was just a gimmick created by the local zoo for publicity. The other longest reticulated python medusa is said to be 12 meters long, but its actual length is only 7.5 meters. There is a video of the actual length on YouTube. The record of real wild snakes on Earth is not even 8 meters. let alone more than 10 meters. This record was created by an anaconda in a Brazilian reservoir, which is 6.95 meters. There are many snakes on Earth that are more than 6 meters, but it is really rare to find one that is more than 6.5 meters. Even tens of millions of years ago, the famous titanoboa on Earth was generally only 9 to 15 meters long, and the maximum individual fossil found so far is only 18.1 meters. The three giant snakes leading the alien beast formation today are at least 22 meters long and must have extraordinary power. There is no doubt about it. These three giant scaly snakes have exceeded the limit of the snake species. The road has sublimated and leaped into another realm. Just as Lin Li was thinking, Lin Ziming on the side said, "Captain Lin, what are we going to do next?" Lin Li was silent for a while, and suddenly asked, "Colonel Lin, Captain Yao's helicopter is equipped with explosives, right?" Chapter 16, Beast Tide, the second force in the other world. Colonel Lin, Captain Yao's plane was equipped with explosives, right? Hearing Lin Li's question, Lin Ziming was slightly stunned, and then replied, "Yes, to be precise, the two AC-311A we sent were equipped with explosives and a small number of light weapons. It is a relatively unknown fact that the aerospace crew of the Rabbit's rescue helicopter is equipped with explosives. Of course, this configuration is limited to official rescue teams, and civilian rescue organizations do not have relevant authority. The explosives equipped by these aerospace crews are mainly high-explosive timed explosives. The explosives are usually loaded in a password box behind the co-pilot's cabin and require authorization from the tower to use. The main purpose of the rescue crew equipping these explosives is to dredge some possible ultra-small barrier lakes or block areas in some large natural emergencies. Generally speaking, the rate of explosive use by the search and rescue crew in the southeastern region of my country is 1 in 100,000. Taking Shanghai as an example, the attendance rate of the official search and rescue crew in Shanghai is 2 times a day. The search and rescue crew does not necessarily go out in special circumstances. In fact, they have patrol missions every day, and the number of ignitions per year is about 800 times. Adding up all the cities in the entire southeastern region, the total number of ignitions by the search and rescue crew is about 6,000–8,000 times a year. 1 in 100,000 means that airborne explosives may only be used once in more than 10 years. In fact, this is exactly the case. The last record of the use of high explosives by aerospace crews in the southeastern region was in the Great Flood many years ago. At that time, a search and rescue team in the Eastern Theater Command threw several groups of explosives and carried out emergency flood discharge in a silted area. Due to the large number of mountainous areas and complex terrain in the West, the use rate of explosives will be relatively higher, but it is only 4 to 5 in 10,000, and it will only be used once in several years. By the way, here is a mention. Although the Rabbit Rescue Team used very little explosives, the frequency of explosives used in foreign countries, especially in the Eagles, was actually very high. Many mountains in the Eagles belong to the Cordillera Mountains, and the mountains are complex. There are many people who survive in the wilderness every year, and often people are trapped in some places and can't get out. In those places, it is often more difficult for rescue machinery to enter, and the labor cost of the Eagles is well known to be high. So when encountering some road-blocking conditions, the Eagles rescue team often directly uses explosives. With a bang, the road is opened, and people are in the sky. The mortality rate of the Rabbit's explosives is infinitely close to zero. After all, there is no chance to use it, while the mortality rate of the Eagles is as high as 8%, and the disability rate is 26.6%. How does that sentence go? Freedom to live, random death. Ahem. Let's get back to the point. In addition to explosives, the light weapons on the helicopter are equipped to the crew by the troops before taking off. After all, it is normal to be equipped with some firearms when performing aerial exploration missions in another world. As a well-deserved veteran in the field of captains, Yao Rong has also received relevant training on weekdays. He can throw explosives and shoot targets. He is definitely not up to the level of going to the battlefield, but he is still at the level of militia. At least he is not like those new recruits who don't even know how to pull the boat. In short, Yao Rong has a certain degree of military literacy. At this time, based on this military literacy, a bold plan was generated in Lin Li's mind. However, before confirming the plan, Lin Li still needs to confirm the willingness of Yao Rong's crew. He pondered for a few seconds and picked up the communicator. "Captain Yao, Please use your flying experience to judge, under the current circumstances, if the helicopter descends to an altitude of 500 meters and throws timed explosives at the alien beast formation, will it threaten your life safety? In the cockpit, Yao Rong raised his thick sword eyebrows and instantly understood what Lin Li meant. The alien beasts were approaching the city, and the command center urgently needed all kinds of information about these alien beasts. Using explosives to test whether thermal weapons can break through the defense of these alien beasts is the most brutal and simple method. As long as it is proved that thermal weapons can cause damage to alien beasts, the next decision of the base camp will be much easier. In addition, there is no other air fire support at the moment, and the ground forces must not be dispatched rashly when the situation is unknown. The trajectory of missiles with a range of more than 10 kilometers is still being recalculated. If the alien beasts are close to the city and then short-range missiles are launched, it is easy to expose the existence of the rabbits. So after excluding various possibilities, Yao Rong's AC-311A is not very suitable at present, but the only choice. However, as a civilian light aircraft, throwing explosives is risky. It is impossible to say that a helicopter can run away after the explosives are thrown down. This is not a competition between naughty children to see who can run faster by blowing up a shit pit. After the bomb is thrown, Yao Rong's crew must observe and record the damage to the alien beasts in the explosion. And considering the obstruction of smoke, the helicopter cannot fly too high. There are obviously extraordinary individuals among the beasts below. Carrying out this mission is almost like jumping to paradise on the edge of a knife. In an instant, Yao Rong thought of a lot. His eyes were complicated at first, and finally gradually firmed. Captain Lin, I am not sure whether my life is in danger. But as a member of the Xinhao team, I apply for my crew to drop explosives as a member of the D team. The command center suddenly fell silent. After a few seconds, Lin Li slowly said, Captain Yao, you may not understand what I mean. I am not forcing you to accept this mission. You have the right to choose to refuse to execute it. It is very likely that those commander-level beasts have air defense capabilities. Before he finished speaking, Yao Rong's firm reply came in the unique hissing sound of wireless communication. Command center, repeat once again. This is the 8633 crew. I apply for the explosives to be dropped. Lin Li's Adam's apple rolled up and down twice, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Then he opened his eyes and waved his hand to Bu Binghu. Authorize, soon. An authorization code was sent to Yao Rong. Yao Rong glanced at the code, gently put it aside, and then looked forward. Old you, I just observed this area. The top of the mountain in the west is a high-quality natural helipad. I will put you there later. You have a locator in your hand. If something happens to me, the camp will find you soon. Yao Rong's tone was calm as if he was chatting about family matters. Yu Guanghu was stunned for 2 seconds before he realized that Yao Rong was talking to him, and his face flushed immediately. Wow, what the hell are you talking about? Am I the kind of person who is afraid of death? I said, why did you express your opinion without asking for my opinion? So this is what you are calculating. Yao Rong did not expect his partner's reaction to be so intense, and hurriedly explained, you have a wife and children at home. I want to. You also have a wife and children. And 2 fucking kids, Yu Guanghu yelled, his eyes full of anger, his index finger poking his chest hard. Old you, Yu Guanghu, am the kind of person who is afraid of death in your eyes? So ignorant? I am your introducer to D, Yu Guanghu said, and spat fiercely on the ground, afraid. Seeing this, Yao Rong smiled bitterly and said nothing more. He knew that Yu Guanghu would never change his mind at this moment, knowing his partner's personality. Okay, let's do it together, old you. Prepare the explosives. 6 minutes later, a bundle of high-explosive timed explosives was debugged. Yao Rong controlled the body and slowly descended to about 500 meters above the ground. As the body descended, the roar of the machinery quickly attracted the attention of the alien beast phalanx on the ground. The leading scaly giant snake whistled, raised its upper body high, and stared vigilantly at the helicopter hovering in the sky. As if they had received an order, the other beasts stopped in their tracks, raised their heads and roared wildly at the helicopter. The roar of all the beasts was really amazing. Countless bloody mouths were aimed at the helicopter. If the altitude dropped a little more, the bad breath would probably suffocate Yao Rong and the others to death. 3, 2, 1, release. As Yao Rong counted down, Yu Guanghu quickly pressed the switch of the timed explosive and then threw it out with force. The weight of the timed high explosive is about 5 kgs, which is about equivalent to 15 50-gram assault grenades. The radius of the shock wave of this weight of explosives is about 18 meters, and the lethal radius is between 0 and 6 meters. For buildings, at a distance of 2 to 3 meters from the center of the explosion, it can completely destroy 200 millimeters thick concrete. At a distance of 5 to 6 meters, it can cause most of the 1.5-story brick wall to collapse, the 2-story thick brick wall to fall down, and the tile roof to collapse. It can be said that beyond 6 meters, the explosive power of this kind of explosive will be much reduced. Sometimes, the glass cannot be shattered even beyond 20 meters. This is not difficult to understand. After all, it is a blasting explosive used for rescue. The power is mainly concentrated in the center of the explosion and will not dissipate too much. But for the alien beast formation on the ground, this kind of explosive is enough to produce some results. The explosive fell rapidly from the sky and hit the leading giant snake by chance. Boom! The explosive exploded in the alien beast crowd, rolling up clouds of dust. There was a little chaos in the alien beast formation, but surprisingly, this small chaos lasted less than 10 seconds before it was controlled. Not to mention the tragedy of spreading intertrampling, it simply did not spread to a range of 50 meters. This is not good news. After a while, the dust dissipated. In the center of the explosion of the explosive, about 2 or 3 black giant snakes were blown into a bloody mess, and there were several alien beasts around with injuries and wailing. But the 20-meter-long giant snake in the lead seemed to be unharmed. "No, it's bleeding," Yu Guanghu suddenly shouted loudly. He quickly pressed a few buttons on the console and manipulated the helicopter's external camera to lock the lens tightly on the head of the giant snake. There is a wound about 20 centimeters long on the lower jaw of the giant snake. The blood is purple and deep enough to see the bone. The explosives have broken through the defense. Just as Yu Guanghu focused all his attention on the wound of the giant snake's eyes revealed a very human hatred. With a hiss, it opened its mouth, as if brewing something. Yao Rong was startled, and under the guidance of his flying instinct, he pulled the joystick up hard. The next second, a green flame spurted out of the giant snake's mouth and went straight to the body. Chapter 17 Return. The flames from the giant snake were very fast. It took only a few seconds from the accumulation of power to the release. In the command center dozens of kilometers away, Lin Li and others were not even mentally prepared. They saw this beam of flame rising from the ground and rushing towards the camera at lightning speed, and then the entire onboard screen lost the signal. The command center instantly fell into dead silence. Lin Li's pupils shrank heavily, and he grabbed the communicator. "Captain Yao? Captain Yao, are you okay? Please answer. Please answer. Damn, I can't get through." Bang! He threw the communicator angrily and punched the table with his fist. His chest rose and fell violently like a broken bellows. For a moment, the air in the command center seemed to freeze. Wang Kaiang's left hand tightly covered her mouth, her eyes full of astonishment. Ma Ning silently put the thermos cup on the table, looked up at the dark top of the tent, and sighed melancholy. The loss of communication equipment and the last scene captured by the camera seemed to indicate a not-so-good possibility. The aircraft was destroyed, and the people were in despair. Just when everyone was almost in despair, Bu Binghu suddenly discovered something, and his eyes suddenly burst into an amazing look. He pointed to the ground tower about 3 meters away from the screen, and said excitedly, "No, the airborne receiving equipment is still working, and the tower can still receive the radiation signal. Look at the navigation indicator, the helicopter is still moving." After that, he quickly rushed to the technical station, and while operating, he muttered to himself, "That's right. The helicopter has a backup phase signal communication device that must be actively activated by the tower. The activation code of the 9960 Hz subcarrier frequency deviation 480 positioning omnidirectional beacon backup device is 69,437,474. Try to connect." Looking at Bu Dinghu's series of operations, everyone present gradually had a glimmer of hope in their eyes. After pressing a series of buttons, Bu Binghu clenched his right fist and hammered on the palm of his left hand. "It's done." Half a minute later, a rustling sound suddenly came from the communicator, accompanied by a faint mechanical hum. Lin Li picked up the communicator carefully, as if any mistake would cause the signal to be interrupted. "Captain Yao, are you okay? Can you hear me?" After more than 10 seconds, Yao Rong's somewhat tired voice came from the communicator. "Command, This is 8633. This is 8633. My plane has now left the alien beast formation, and my partner and I are in good condition. With the last reply of all good conditions, cheers suddenly broke out in the command center. Wang Kaiang's left hand, which was tightly covering her mouth, suddenly loosened, raised both hands above her head, and jumped up and down. Great, Captain Yao and the others are alive. Manning picked up the thermos cup, gently sipped the wolfberry tea, and resumed his leisurely state again. If the frequency of his hand shaking while holding the thermos cup was lower, I think this leisurely appearance would be more real. Lin Ziming and Yan Xiaoxin looked at each other and laughed, and the relieved laughter dispelled the dull filth. Lin Li also unloaded the thousands of burdens in his heart. While he breathed a sigh of relief, he quickly forced himself to calm down. Captain Yao, what happened just now? Why did the camera and communication equipment fail? In the cockpit, Yao Rong looked out the window with lingering fear, and said with some fear, after the explosives exploded, the leading giant snake suddenly sprayed a burst of flames at my plane. Fortunately, I was alert in advance and pulled up the joystick in advance. In addition, the helicopter itself was in a state of hovering. In the 1 or 2 seconds from the flame to the arrival, the body barely rose 3 or 4 meters. In the end, the flame flew past the side wing of the body, and the external leading camera and communication antenna were destroyed by the aftermath. In addition, a part of the left front landing gear of the body was also damaged, the side wing door edge was moderately sunken, and the power equipment was also damaged to varying degrees, resulting in the helicopter temporarily unable to fly normally at an altitude above 2,000 meters. The current flight altitude of our aircraft is 1,300 meters. After escaping the disaster, the giant snake seemed a little depressed and stopped emitting flames. In addition, the other several commander-level monsters were far away from my plane, so I took this opportunity to leave the area. Considering the current condition of the fuselage, please allow the command center to return home. Over. No problem, Lin Li promised without hesitation. Captain Yao, now as the head of the Xinhao team, I allow your crew to return home early. If the equipment is broken, it can be repaired or rebuilt. The most important thing is that no one is hurt. The information collected by your crew this time is very valuable. I will report it to the base camp truthfully and apply for a commendation for you. Now you can return to the team. Please be careful on the way. After hanging up the call, Lin Li looked at Bu Binghu. Manager Bu, Captain Yao's fuselage seems to be damaged. You are an expert in this field. Please go and hand it over to the comrades in the logistics team. Make sure that Captain Yao's helicopter can land smoothly. Bu Binghu patted his chest and looked very confident. No problem. The damage to the landing gear on one side is not a particularly troublesome problem for a light helicopter. Captain Yao is very close to us and should return within half an hour. Leave it to me and ensure that the mission is completed. After Bu Binghu left, Lin Li looked at the people present again. Everyone, please be quiet for a while. Manager Bu is responsible for Captain Yao's return. It's time for us to do some serious work. Captain Yen and several other experts have just arrived at the camp not long ago, and some information may be relatively lagging. I will first summarize our current exploration progress. At present, the area we are exploring can be divided into 2 parts. The first part is the area around the camp, with a radius of about 20 kilometers, and has been mapped in a relatively detailed human-machine collaborative manner. In addition to the city discovered for the first time, in the past 10 hours or so, we have successively discovered 2 rivers, 2 suspected laterite sources, and some normal-shaped bird figures, which belong to the core area of relatively detailed exploration. The second part is the flight path area of the 2 helicopters, one in the south and one in the north, about 50 kilometers away from the camp in a straight line. During the exploration of this area, the dispatched crew did not find any large biological communities, but encountered a phalanx of alien beasts in the south. The name of the phalanx of alien beasts is a bit difficult to pronounce. Thousands of alien beasts are like a tide. I think it is better to call it a beast tide. The above is almost a summary of the current progress. Now everyone can talk about their views on the beast tide. Okay, then I will say a few words first. Manning on the side coughed lightly, attracting everyone's attention. According to the information we have collected so far, this world temporarily has 2 racial concept level forces, humans and alien beasts. As for whether there are third parties or even more forces, further exploration is needed. Judging from the direction of the beast tide and the preparations for the city, these two forces are undoubtedly opposed to each other. In addition, although the alien beasts are animals in life form, they obviously have a clear status and a high level of wisdom. The wisdom level of the several commander-level alien beasts is likely to be close to or even exceed that of humans. The leader of the medical team, Baozin, listened quietly and suddenly asked, I agree that the alien beasts have high intelligence, but to say that their intelligence level exceeds that of humans? This is probably unlikely, right? Moning glanced at him and knew that this medical expert was still somewhat limited by his inherent ideas, commanding tens of thousands of alien beasts to march together, without dispersing, trampling, and stopping when they go. The central area was bombed with explosives, and except for a little panic at the beginning, the beast tide formation did not show any dispersion, and achieved absolute obedience with 10,000 as the formation. On Earth, only the army can do this. Even the armies of countries like Gaul and India may not be as good as those alien beasts. This is far beyond the scope of uncivilized beasts, plus they have extraordinary power and wisdom comparable to that of humans, which is not something difficult to accept. Moning shook his head and said with a pessimistic tone, this level of beast tide, plus those leaders who are suspected to have high intelligence. To be honest, I am not very optimistic about the city side. To be conservative, this will at least be a fierce battle. There will be 2 updates today, nearly 6,000 words. Shouldn't you all express your gratitude? Don't forget to give the characters a heart. It's free and only takes a few seconds. It's quite helpful to the work. And I'm still asking for your recommendation votes. Chapter 18 Calculation. A fierce battle. Lin Li touched his chin, his expression a little solemn. Moning put his hands behind his back and said with a little confidence, it is very likely that the battle will be fierce. Both sides seem to have made some preparations. After all, if it was really a losing battle, the families in the city might have abandoned the city and fled long ago. In the pictures sent back by the platoon leader, there were many people coming in and out of the mansions in the north of the city. It didn't look like the whole family was fleeing. In other words, the city was prepared to some extent. They could even estimate the approximate time of the beast tide's arrival. But from the perspective of attack and defense, the attacker is generally stronger than the defender. I think even if the city can be successfully defended in the end, the price paid should not be small, and it is not impossible that the city will be destroyed and people will die. So my personal preference for the winning rate is 70 hours, and 30 minutes, 70% for the beast tide and 30% for the city. Another expert presenter heard this and suddenly coughed and raised his hand. This person's name is Dai Chao Hong. He is in his early 40s. He wears a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and has a gentle and capable temperament. He was a member of the second group of staff who arrived at the camp with Lin Ziming. He was from the School of Humanities of Zhejiang University and was also an expert in social humanities. Dai Chao Hong had previously raised doubts about the height of the city wall and other issues, and had made inferences about war a long time ago. After the inference was confirmed to be true, Dai Chao Hong's prestige soared during this period, and he almost became the voice of the second group of experts. His view on this war was opposite to Moning's. Professor Ma, I think the city has a better chance of winning. First of all, in the video sent back by platoon leader Yu, we found many traces of later filing in the city wall. Most of these traces are concentrated in the middle and upper parts of the wall, and the base is intact. This shows that the city wall has not been attacked and collapsed as a whole. Secondly, the signs that platoon leader Yu found around the 8th mansion show that the city was prepared for the attack of the beast tide and had a relatively calm resettlement plan. This shows that this should not be the first time that the city has faced or even defeated the beast tide. Coupled with the extraordinary power possessed by the city, I think the two sides are at least 50-50. Wang Qiang muttered quietly to the side. Magic power is 70-30, fantasy is 50-50, well, they're all together. I don't know whether it was a reversal of 10,000 economy or a direct 3-0 win. Lin Li did not hear the muttering of this older leftover woman. He listened quietly to the opinions of the two experts, turned his head and whispered to Lin Ziming, Colonel Lin, what do you think? Do you think we should be prepared to join the war? Lin Ziming stammered a few times, hesitating to speak, and finally said hesitantly, I do have some ideas, but let's wait until Captain Yao lands. Wait for Captain Yao to land? Hasn't the situation on his side been reported? Lin Li thought for a few seconds, suddenly thought of something, and said suddenly, I understand, You want to see the extent of damage to the plane before making a judgment? Lin Ziming nodded. Yes. I plan to wait for Captain Yao to return, and let Old Yan transfer a few mechanics from the Air Defense Company directly under their regiment to check the extent of damage to the fuselage and landing gear. No matter how mysterious the light and flame are, the core is inseparable from the word energy. It's nothing more than a different way of expression. Now our technical means are very advanced, and we can fully calculate the power of that light and flame. Lin Li hummed softly, obviously agreeing with Lin Ziming's idea. After Yao Rong's personal experiment not long ago, the camp has now confirmed one thing: explosives can threaten the lives of ordinary beasts, and can break the surface defense of the commander-level giant snake, causing a certain degree of damage to it. You know, the blasting explosives used by Yao Rong weigh 5 caddies, or 2.5 kilograms. This equivalent is undoubtedly a great source of danger for ordinary people. But in the military industry, this kind of blasting explosives, whether in terms of equivalent or power, can only be considered mediocre. Note that the last 4 words are not the irony of Principal Gu, but really mediocre. CL-20, RDX, PETN, and even octagon, etc., are all military materials that are stronger than blasting explosives. Not to mention those medium and large weapons such as missiles and howitzers, which can hit the target with one shot. At the very least, the rabbits don't have to worry about the embarrassing situation like in the Starship Troopers movie, where thermal weapons can't penetrate the skin of the alien beast. But for a steady force like the rabbit, it's not enough to just understand the alien beast's defense. The alien beast's attack must also be understood. After all, no one knows whether the extraordinary creatures in this world will be like a certain anime with 5 villages fighting, where all of them are low defense and high attack characters. Only by figuring out the destructive power of the commander-level alien beast can the command center really make the next decision. Half an hour later, Yao Rong's crew successfully landed and returned. Lin Li, who had been waiting here for a long time, stepped forward quickly, held Yao Rong's hand tightly and waved it up and down. Captain Yao, you have worked hard. Welcome back safely. Yao Rong, who had gone through a life and death situation, looked a little excited, with a little moisture in the corners of his eyes. Captain Lin, I am glad to have fulfilled my mission. Lin Li let go of his hand, patted Yao Rong's shoulder vigorously, and then called a logistics staff. Xiao Lin, please take Captain Yao and the other 2 to the tent to rest and do some rehabilitation. After Yao Rong and Yu Guanghu left, Lin Li turned around, pointed to the damaged helicopter more than 10 meters away, and said to the 3 mechanics from the air defense battalion around him, 3 comrades, please trouble you. The 3 mechanics said yes. 2 of them rolled up their sleeves, took 2 instruments to the side of the helicopter, and began to test the damaged landing gear. The remaining person stayed aside and input the data measured by the 2 colleagues into a computer. 20 minutes later, the mechanic in charge of data input stood up and reported, Captain Lin, there are results. Lin Li immediately asked, what is this comrade's name? What are the test results? My last name is Zhao. Captain Lin, just call me Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao shyly touched his head, showing a simple smile, and then his expression became serious. My colleague conducted a salt spray test and edge-line laser measurement on the helicopter's landing gear, and input a sample transmission information into a set of X programs developed by the military industry, and obtained a series of data through modeling. As Xiao Zhao spoke, he handed over a freshly printed report. First, the salt spray test detected the corrosiveness of the luminous flame. The corrosion rate is about 145.78 mm, which means that the metal corrodes 145.7 millimeters to metal depth every year, which is extremely severe corrosion. Lin Li took the form and glanced at it for a few times, his face showing a hint of confusion. 145.7 mm per year? That means only about half a millimeter a day? But I think the breach in the landing gear is at least 30 centimeters deep. Right, Xiao Zhao explained. Captain Lin, the damage to the landing gear was not entirely caused by the strong acid. First, the kinetic energy of the light flame damaged the landing gear, resulting in the appearance of the gap you mentioned. Then the acid attached to it and gradually began to corrode it. Lin Li nodded. I understand. Comrade Xiao Zhao, please continue. Xiao Zhao handed over another report. This is the test result of our simulated kinetic unit test. Since only the edge of the light flame rubbed the fuselage, we first estimated the kinetic energy of the light flame that hit the landing gear based on the degree of damage to the landing gear. Then, Based on the side spacing recorded by the last frame of the camera, with the assistance of the X program, we used the edge data measured by laser to build a model and restored the theoretical values of various data of the light flame itself. Lin Li couldn't wait to ask, "What is the theoretical value?" Xiao Zhao replied, "AC-311A is a civilian model, and the landing gear is not made of military alloy. According to our calculations, the flight speed of the Guangayan body is about 1.2 Mach, which is 1.2 times the speed of sound. It took a total of 1.227 seconds from launch to passing over the body. The upper limit of the energy of the Guangayan body is 3,265.3 kilojoules, and the lower limit is 1,753.2 kilojoules. Lin Li pondered for a while and continued to ask, "The 9,999 tanks like those of Captain Yan, right? How much energy can penetrate it?" Xiao Zhao smiled again and corrected Lin Li's misunderstanding. "Captain Lin, relying on explosions to destroy a hard target requires not total energy, but mechanical energy caused by the explosion. That is, the explosion speed must be very high. Taking the more famous anti-tank missile Hongjian 8 in my country as an example, the thickness of the warhead is about 800 millimeters. A standard Hongjian 8 can penetrate the armor of the 99A from the flank, but it cannot penetrate the front main armor with one shot." Note 1. According to our calculations, the mechanical energy generated by the explosion of that flame is about equal to 1/4 of our Red Arrow 8. In other words, the flame cannot pose a threat to our main battle tanks, but it has a certain lethality rate to infantry. Note, let me explain here why I use anti-tank missiles instead of howitzers as an example. The charge of howitzers is generally 6-8 kilograms, and the charge of Red Arrow 8 is 1.5 kilograms, but the targets of the two are completely different. Howitzers are generally used against clustered targets, and anti-missiles are generally used against single tanks or armored vehicles. In addition, the size of the flame is similar to that of anti-missiles, so I will directly use anti-missiles as an example. There is another reason for not using howitzers as an example. Howitzers can hit tanks. Anyone who has been to military forums knows that this problem can last until the day when the Chinese national football team enters the World Cup. 2 chapters of 6,000 words, the word count has exceeded again. The 2 chapters tomorrow will have more words. I am crying. The next few chapters are the high plot of the first part. Please vote more. Chapter 19 Surprising Discovery. After listening to the data reported by Xiao Zhao, Lin Li exhaled heavily. The luminous flames ejected by the scaly giant snake were only 1/4 as powerful as the Red Arrow 8. Even if the luminous flames were given armor-piercing and corrosion properties, they still could not threaten the rabbit's main battle tanks. At the same time, according to Yao Rong's description, the scaly giant snake was listless after ejecting the luminous flames, and it seemed to have entered the sage time, and could only watch the helicopter escape from the sky. From this, it can be judged that even if the luminous flames are not the ultimate trump card of the giant snake, they are definitely one of some rare means of attack. It is not difficult to understand if you think about it. After all, this is a ground-to-air attack method. If it can be used at will without any cost, then these giant snakes should not lead the beast tide to attack the city, but just put it outside the city and release the light waves. Just like the creatures on the earth. Whether you are an insect or a human, you always have to pay a price if you want to eject something. At this point, the camp has a relatively clear understanding of the attack and defense power of the armored giant snake. As for the other 2-headed bulls and giant monsters that are also the leaders of the beast tide, although their attack methods are not known for the time being. But even if they have stronger attack moves than the giant snake, the power will never reach or even exceed 4 times that of Guangayan. After all, if there is a power that exceeds several energy levels, the two sides will not be equal, but subordinate. To put it bluntly, regardless of whether there is a possibility of encountering more powerful beasts in the future, at least in this beast tide, the rabbits are firmly invincible. Maybe if they really fight, they may not be able to annihilate the enemy without injury, but the price they pay is definitely limited, and the rabbits will definitely win in the end. Faced with this solid test data, even Zheng Guchen, who had always advocated avoiding war, changed his opinion. In the end, the camp reached a consensus through voting. The armored infantry regiment entered a standby state and was ready to participate in the battle at any time according to the situation of the beast tide siege. Afterwards, Lin Li wrote down everyone's opinions into a document, which was sent to Shenchang by Lin Ziming and handed over to the headquarters personally. After seeing Lin ziming off, Yan Xiaoxin seemed very excited. As a soldier, no one is afraid of fighting. He followed Lin Li and patted his chest loudly. Captain Lin, as long as you find me a bunker, I guarantee that I can wipe out all these alien beasts. Lin Li glanced at him. Captain Yan, don't get too excited. We just submitted our unified opinion to the base camp. Whether to fight, how to fight, and when to fight must be based on the instructions from the base camp brought back by Colonel Lin. Yan Xiaoxin touched his head and smiled honestly. After all, it may be the first battle in the alien world, and I feel a little itchy. By the way, how long will it take for Colonel Lin to come back? In such a short time, the beast tide is probably almost outside the city, right? Lin Li glanced at his watch. When Colonel Lin will come back depends on how fast the base camp makes decisions. As for the beast tide, it should arrive outside the city in an hour or so. Just as Lin Li was talking to Yan Xiaoxin, the squad leader of the communications squad, Wang Yaohua, suddenly walked over quickly. Captain Lin, Professor Ma and the others asked you to go over. There is a new discovery over there by platoon leader Yu. Hearing that there was new progress on Julian's side, Lin Li naturally did not dare to neglect it and parted ways with Yan Xiaoxin on the spot. Yan Xiaoxin went to the regiment headquarters to deal with the handover of the team assembly, and he followed Wang Yaohua back to the headquarters. At this time, only Moning and Dai Chaohong were left in the headquarters, and some other experts and scholars from the staff group were not included. Everyone else was arranged in the communication class tent, responsible for monitoring and analyzing the real-time images sent back. After all, with the increase in supplies and personnel, the central position of the headquarters has become more and more prominent, and it is not convenient for everyone to squeeze into this tent. It is inevitable to divide the office area. Only when important information is collected or key instructions from superiors are conveyed, all members of the staff group will be summoned to the headquarters to participate in discussions. As soon as he entered the headquarters tent, Lin Li took the initiative to speak. Two experts, what happened? Is there any movement from the supernatural power in the city? Captain Lin, you are here. Moning greeted him politely and said, the supernatural power in the city has not moved for the time being, but the army in the city has already taken position on the city wall. I don't know if it is due to lack of manpower or other reasons, but the city has summoned a group of voluntary residents to participate in the defense. This group of people is not small in number. By the way, platoon leader Yu is also among them. Lin Li frowned slightly. Civilians have all gone to the city. Are they going to engage in hand-to-hand combat? Moning pondered for a few seconds. At present, we are not sure about the other party's plan. We can only say that there is such a possibility. The details will not be known until the war starts. What really caught the attention of our staff group was not a matter of summoning civilians, but the two pictures taken by platoon leader Yu. Lin Li noticed that Moning's tone was a little wrong when he said the last sentence. How to say it? It was as if he was restraining some emotion. Moning then took Lin Li to the command desk and pressed a button. First, this part. Seeing this, Lin Li had to temporarily put aside a series of questions in his mind and watch the video carefully. The video was about 20 seconds long. In the center of the screen was a large rusty pot. The inner pot was very deep, and the diameter was estimated to be a little over 1 meter. The pot was placed on a fire, and people were constantly pouring some dirty liquid into it, while others were stirring it with a stick. Perhaps it was because the color of the liquid was too disgusting. Lin Li suddenly felt a chill in his heart. What is this? Dai Hong beside Moning glanced at him and said calmly, burning gold juice, that is, shit soup. We asked platoon leader Yu to come closer and confirm that those aliens added all excrement to the cauldron. Lin Li, then he took a few deep breaths, forced himself to suppress the discomfort in his heart, and asked Dai Chaohong, Teacher Dai, is there anything wrong with this video? Although the content of the video was a bit heavy, he didn't think that the entire staff group would deliberately use this kind of video to disgust him at this time. As expected, Dai Chaohong explained, Captain Lin, you may not understand that gold juice is a very common way of defending a city in ancient China. The ancient Chinese often heated the gold juice during sieges and then poured it on the enemy. Under the high temperature, the enemy was either dead or injured. Because feces contains all kinds of dirty germs, the mortality rate after a serious wound infection is very high. It is a defense method that combines physical and chemical methods. After hearing this, Lin Li became more and more confused. I understand the principle of gold juice, but isn't this just a way of defending a city? According to Professor Ma's previous analysis, The level of civilization of the city can be compared to the Qin and Han dynasties, so isn't it normal for the other party to use gold juice to defend against the enemy? Dai Chao Hong smiled and said to Lin Li word by word, Captain Lin, do you know that China is the only civilization in the world that has used gold juice since records began? Lin Li was stunned, his eyes as big as 7 Li Ronghaos. No way, those ancient people in the West, those ancestors in Africa and America, no one has used gold juice to defend the city. Ma Ning, who was listening, shook his head and interrupted, really not. The ancient Westerners burned asphalt and boiling oil in war. Although they also have the effect of killing enemies at high temperatures, asphalt targets armor and skin, which is completely different from the fatal point of gold juice. In the history of city defense on Earth, China and other civilizations can be described as a set and subset relationship. The core reason for this relationship is that ancient China had a vast territory and frequent dynasties. The West was far behind ancient China in terms of war scale and weapon refining level. For example, the ancient grassland civilization during the southern and northern dynasties did not even have the prototype of a city-state. China accounts for 8 of the top 10 ancient cities in terms of area in the history of human civilization. Therefore, China can find similar records of the city defense methods used by other civilizations, but other civilizations cannot fully master the city defense methods that China has. Gold juice is one of them. Lin Li's breathing became a little faster. He vaguely heard some meaning from Ma Ning's words. But this meaning was too shocking. He thought for a while and said in a rebuttal, could this be a coincidence? After all, burning gold juice itself is not a difficult technology to replicate. They are all in ancient backgrounds, so it is reasonable to have some similar methods, right? Just a video of burning gold juice is too unconvincing, etc. Lin Li suddenly thought of something and stared at Ma Ning and Dai Chao Hong. The second video. Note, there will be another update tonight. Chapter 20, the 20th amazing discovery. Ha ha ha, you guessed it right. Ma Ning looked at Lin Li with a sigh and raised a thumbs up. Old Lin, you are worthy of being a scientific researcher. Your ideas are clear. Yes, we have a second video. As he said that, he pressed another button, and another video popped up on the screen in an instant. Watch it. Lin Li pursed his lips tightly, stopped talking, and stared at the screen. He had a hunch that the second video might bring some unexpected information. The second video was also not long, about 10 seconds. The content was even simpler than the first video. There was no protagonist, no focus. The picture was even a little bumpy. It was a video of Julian and other refugees carrying supplies and passing through a courtyard in the mansion. It looked ordinary and meaningless. Lin Li looked up at Ma Ning, and a question mark popped up in his head. Ma Ning did not explain, but pressed the play button again. After the progress bar had advanced for 3 or 4 seconds, he suddenly clicked pause, and captured and enlarged the screen. Old Lin, take another look. The area that was paused and enlarged was on the left side of the refugees passing by, and the main content was a closed hut in the courtyard. The hut was made of wood, with sparse eaves, and quietly sat in the courtyard. There was a wooden strip with words on each side of the door. Combined with the surrounding moss, it looked very old. The hut was about 7 or 8 meters away from where Julian was shooting. The high-precision camera took pictures at this distance and enlarged them with almost no distortion, and the content on the wooden strip could be clearly seen. Lin Li leaned forward to take a look, and naturally read, year after year, the weather is good, and the people are prosperous every year. Isn't it spring? Before he finished speaking, he was struck by lightning and stood stiffly in place. After a full 10 seconds, he came back to his senses and stared at Ma Ning. Spring Festival couplets. He looked at Dai Chao Hong again, and said word by word, Hui, Xia, Han, characters. Dai Chao Hong half raised his head, closed his eyes, and exhaled a long breath from his nose. There was a hint of excitement and trembling in his tone. Yes, this is a Spring Festival couplet written in Chinese characters. Lin Li opened his mouth weakly, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. After a long time, he asked intermittently, but didn't we confirm before that the alien language and the Chinese language are not the same system? Dai Chao Hong pointed to a computer next to the screen and said, yes, Professor Ma is an expert in language. He used a computer to analyze the language mother copy he had collected before. It can be confirmed that the characters and languages of the alien world have no intersection with Chinese culture, and there is no possibility that Chinese characters are some kind of prior culture. Ma Ning nodded slowly at the side. confirming that what Dai Chao Hong said was correct. Lin Li pointed to the couplet on the screen. Then what's going on? Dai Chao Hong gently took off his glasses and rubbed his Jingming acupoint, his tone helpless and puzzled. We don't know either. This completely violates the cultural barrier theory of a civilization. At least with the current inherent mindset, we can't find a completely reasonable explanation. At this time, Wang Qiang, who was working as a background board on the side, suddenly raised her hand. Teacher Dai, you said there is no completely reasonable explanation, so is there an explanation that is reasonable but unreasonable? Huh? Dai Chao Hong looked at the girl in surprise, and said in amazement, you are worthy of being a student of Team Lin. You are really quick to react. Yes, we do have a somewhat bizarre guess. I just said it casually, and I guessed it right. Wang Qiang widened her eyes, and then asked, Teacher Dai, then you tell me, is there an explanation that is reasonable but unreasonable, or an unreasonable but reasonable? Or neither? Stop, stop, stop. If you go on, the readers will talk nonsense. Dai Chao Hong quickly interrupted the funny guy and stopped keeping him in suspense. He turned to Lin Li and said, Captain Lin, we do have a guess that we are not sure about. That is, could the person who carved this couplet also be a time traveler from China? Lin Li exclaimed in surprise. A time traveler from China? To be a top scientific research authority, Lin Li's IQ was naturally beyond doubt. He didn't think twice before, purely because he was too surprised to see the Chinese characters. Now with Dai Chao Hong's enlightenment, a guess soon emerged in his mind. Are you talking about the light gate? Someone came to this world through the light gate before us. Dai Chao Hong shook his head uncertainly. It's hard to say, I can only say that there is such a possibility. After all, that Spring Festival couplet looks quite old. Even if that time traveler also came to another world through the light gate, it should have been a long time before us. It's a pity that the location of the wooden house is too remote, and platoon leader you didn't have the opportunity to take some sawdust samples and bring them back for dating analysis. Lin Li folded his arms, sorted out his thoughts, and soon thought of another key point. He turned to Ma Ning and asked, Professor Ma, you are an expert in literature and history, so do you know which dynasty this couplet first came from? Ma Ning really lived up to his reputation as the honorary consultant of the Jinling Museum, and answered without much hesitation, year after year, the weather is good and the people are prosperous. The key to this couplet lies in the second half of the sentence, which is the people are prosperous. The earliest source of the word the people are prosperous is the sentence, the mountains are bright and the waters are beautiful, and the people are prosperous in the book of the later Han Dynasty, biography of Liu Tao. The book of the later Han Dynasty is one of the first 4 histories, compiled by Fan Yi, a historian in the Southern Song Dynasty of China. Note, it is the Southern Song Dynasty during the Southern and Northern dynasties, not the Southern Song Dynasty. The book was written between 432 and 445 AD, which was roughly the late Roman Empire in Europe. Lin Li touched his beard thoughtfully. In other words, if the Chinese time traveler first came to the other world, it would not be later than the Southern Song Dynasty. Unexpectedly, Ma Ning shook his head. Old Lin, you are not a literature and history major, so you may not be that sensitive to words. That couplet is written in simplified Chinese. Lin Li's pupils shrank sharply, and he leaned over to the screen again and carefully read the couplet again. Is this really simplified Chinese? Ma Ning exhaled with a complicated expression. Yes. Simplified Chinese. China began to fully promote simplified Chinese in 1956, which means that the suspected time traveler may have come from after 1956. Wait, Lin Li suddenly interrupted him. Professor Ma, I remember that simplified Chinese already existed among the people before the establishment of New China, right? For example, in the late Qing Dynasty and the Republic of China? I remember that some newspapers and magazines used simplified Chinese, right? Ma Ning did not answer the question immediately. He reached out and pointed at a word on the couplet. Lin Li. Ma Ning picked up a piece of paper, wrote on it, and then drew a circle around with the tip of the pen, explaining, Captain Lin, did you notice the character on the left of the character? The character first appeared in the Xiao Ju Bian Jack, and the original text is a dot is water, and an empty pick is. In history, it was generally used as a running script radical of the character, rather than a radical. Historically, was truly used as a regular script radical and successfully promoted after the announcement of the Chinese character simplification plan in June 1956. Hearing this, for a moment, Lin Li felt a little hot in his heart. He felt a strange numbness rising from the coccyx and rushing up to his scalp. Every word Man Ying said was a shock to his aging heart. After a long time, he spoke with a slightly hoarse voice. In other words, the suspected Chinese time traveler is likely to have come from after the founding of the People's Republic of China. Man Ying nodded and made the final conclusion. If such a person really exists, then he or she must have come from after 1956. Lin Li pulled his already sparse hair, and it can be seen that he was quite tangled in his heart. If such a person really exists, then when did he come to the other world? The 1960s? The 1970s? Or the 1990s? The couplet is obviously a bit old. Is this person still alive? Thinking more deeply, how did this time traveler come to the other world? Light gate, or something else? This is a huge variable, and no one knows whether it is good or bad. Just as Lin Li was thinking, a figure hurriedly walked in from outside the tent. It was Lin Ziming who went to Shenchang to report his opinions. At this time, Lin Ziming's forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat, his breathing was a little rapid, and he looked exhausted. Captain Lin, the headquarters has approved our opinions. You can notify Captain Yan and them to start assembling. Do you know how difficult it is to find a couplet that fits the plot? This chapter took me almost twice as long. The war is about to break out, and all the foreshadowing in the previous chapters is for the recent chapters. 13,200 words were updated in 2 days, which is comparable to the update volume of other new books in 3.5 days. The current recommended ranking is in the middle, and the difference between the front and the back is very small. So please vote more, and click if you haven't collected it. The new book period really needs your support. Chapter 21 set off, 4 kilometers outside the city. Hearing the good news that the headquarters allowed the troops to assemble, Lin Li, who had been frowning because of the suspicion of the existence of a first-time traverser, finally relaxed a little. He picked up a disposable plastic cup, took a glass of water from the water dispenser and handed it to Lin Ziming. Come on, Colonel Lin, drink some water first. Xiao Wang, go to the regiment tent and ask Captain Yan to come over. Wang Qiang left in response. Lin Ziming took the cup of water, thanked him politely, and raised his head. Gurgle. After drinking the water in the plastic cup, he wiped the water stains on his beard and casually started a topic while waiting for Yan Xiaoxin. Captain Lin, what are you and Professor Ma discussing? Is there any new situation? There is a very important discovery, but it will take some time to sort things out, so let's just wait for Captain Yan to come and talk about it together. Lin Li nodded his chin in the direction of the Armored Infantry Regiment headquarters and said, Captain Yan's headquarters is less than 100 meters away from here, just wait a few minutes. Then he suddenly thought of something, and a hint of teasing appeared at the corner of his mouth. The nature of this matter is extraordinary. I may have to trouble you, the colonel, to make another trip later. Speaking of which, you have almost become a full-time courier during this period of time. Lin Ziming suppressed his curiosity and smiled helplessly. There is no way. Among the more than 2,000 people in our camp, my identity is the most suitable to be responsible for the intersection of confidential documents. Every time I go back outside the door, I have to do tests and blood draws. To be honest, it's quite troublesome. Lin Li patted his shoulder and comforted him. It will only be a while longer. When the next batch of personnel and supplies arrive, there should be a specialist who will take over your burden. While the two were talking, Yan Xiaoxin followed Wang Qiang to the headquarters. Captain Yan, you are here, Lin Li greeted him, and then said to Ma Ning and Dai Chaohong, 2 experts, please repeat what you just said to Colonel Lin and the others. Considering that the beast tide is still a long distance away from the city, the Armored Infantry Regiment will not directly participate in the battle at the beginning. So Lin Li did not rush to ask about the specific layout of the base camp, but asked the 2 experts to introduce the latest discoveries. After all, Lin Ziming said when he just entered the tent that the base camp had approved the proposal of the headquarters. So what he needed to hand over was nothing more than detailed information, such as the battlefield layout. This information is certainly important, but compared with the discoveries of Ma Ning and Dai Chaohong, the latter is obviously more urgent. Hearing Lin Li's request, Ma Ning and Dai Chaohong did not waste time and led the 2 military officers to the command platform. They repeated what they had said before. Perhaps because of their insufficient knowledge reserves, the 2 rough guys Lin Ziming and Yan Xiaoxin did not raise many questions like Lin Li did. They basically nodded their heads and exclaimed no way and oh my. In less than a few minutes, Ma Ning and the others explained the situation of it is suspected that there are Chinese time travelers who came to the alien world a long time ago. Looking at Lin and Yan, whose jaws were about to drop to the ground. Lin Li blinked a little nervously. My reaction just now should not be so exaggerated, right? Then he coughed lightly and said, Colonel Lin, I will write a report later. Please bring the report and video back to Shenzhen. By the way, please ask the headquarters to check if there are any missing cases suspected of time travel after the founding of the People's Republic of China. If possible, it would be best to bring back a copy of the file. Lin Ziming promised readily. No problem, Lin Li continued. Okay, then let's talk about this siege. Colonel Lin, does the headquarters have any additional instructions? When the instructions from the headquarters were mentioned, the atmosphere in the command center suddenly became much more serious. Lin Ziming took out a document from his confidential bag and handed it to Lin Li. This is the assembly order approved and stamped by the headquarters. Note 1. The headquarters has agreed to our application for preparation for war. In case of emergency, we can decide whether to participate in the war, but there are 2 points to note. First, if the battle situation is favorable to the city and has not completely fallen to the side of the alien beasts, we must not be exposed in advance. This degree must be grasped well. Second, if we encounter the worst situation when meeting with the humans from the alien world, we are allowed to fight back, but we must not be the first to fire the first shot. This is a death order. Wang Qiang blinked eagerly. She wanted to say something like, but the people in the alien world don't have guns either. We must be the first to fire the first shot, but considering that she would most likely be cleared out after committing suicide and become the unlucky person who was forced to fire the first shot, she regretfully swallowed this nonsense back into her stomach. Then Lin Ziming took out a few more military maps. These are the combat maps restored by the base camp through supercomputers based on the images recorded by military drones. The coverage area is 20 kilometers, and the scale error will not exceed 0.2 meters. He spread out one of the maps, and saw dense markings engraved on it. This is the topography map near the target city. Please see, this is the route of the beast tide. This is the coordinates of the city. These are the main roads around that can carry vehicles. Although the scale of the beast tide is huge, the circumference of the city wall is close to 16 kilometers, and the number of strange beasts is obviously not enough to fully besiege the city. Therefore, the base camp judged that the leader of the beast tide might split up small groups of strange beasts to harass other locations, and the large forces would concentrate on attacking 1 or 2 city walls. In fact, the base camp believes that the possibility of 2 places is greater, although I don't know how this speculation was made. Yan Xiaoxin suddenly thought of something, raised his eyebrows with a little surprise, and said, the headquarters guess is very likely correct. A few minutes ago, another helicopter we sent out sent back a video of the beast tide taken from a distance. As the beast tide moved, it split into 2 groups more than 1 kilometer apart. Each group was led by several commander-level monsters. It was obvious that they were dividing their forces. Lin Li glanced outside the tent and asked, regardless of whether the beast tide attacks one or both sides of the city wall, how should our troops be deployed? Should we wait outside the valley of the camp first? The distance to wait outside the valley is too far, and it's easy for something to go wrong. Lin Ziming shook his head and drew a route on the map with his finger. The headquarters hopes that we can get out of the valley and first arrive at a call that platoon leader Yu has been to before, then go around the avenue behind the call to the west side of the city, and finally gather here first. Lin Li glanced at the landmark that Lin Ziming pointed to at last, and a sense of familiarity inexplicably emerged in his mind. After thinking for a few seconds, he suddenly realized, is this the terraced field that Professor Ma mentioned before? Lin Ziming nodded. Yes, it is the terraced field that Professor Ma mentioned before. The terraced field is about 4 kilometers away from the city. The mountain behind it is directly connected to the main road of the call, which can completely block the trace of the troops. More importantly, the terrain of this terraced field is higher than the city. There is a gentle slope of about 10 degrees between it and the city. If a special situation really occurs, this gentle slope can provide great convenience for the armored regiment to defend against the enemy in charge. Lin Li listened quietly to the side, gently picked up the assembly order on the table, and read it carefully. Then, he solemnly handed the assembly order to Yan Xiaoxin. Captain Yan, take the order. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22. all living things. With the authorization from the headquarters, the entire armored infantry regiment assembled in less than 10 minutes. Outside the valley, Lin Lizhang and Yan Xiaoxin made the final handover. Captain Yan, Colonel Lin has returned to the base camp to pass on the news of the suspected time traveler. I will contact you as soon as there is a result from the base camp. Considering that the camp is connected to the light gate and some research tasks are still ongoing, I, as the captain, can't get away, so I won't accompany you to the front line. According to the arrangement of the base camp, all communication equipment and personnel will cooperate with your actions this time. With the addition of equipment such as high-powered telescopes, it is not difficult to grasp the dynamics of the battlefield at any time. I emphasize again that the degree of deciding whether to participate in the war must be grasped well. In addition, except for a group of 10 people left behind, the remaining 40 of the 50 soldiers at the high-frequency base station will be temporarily incorporated into your regiment. So many PF-97 93mm single-soldier cloud explosion rocket launchers and FHJ-02 62mm cluster rocket launchers should be able to significantly increase the infantry combat power of your regiment. Finally, you must remember, if we really come into contact with humans from another world, we must not be the first to fire the first shot. I am not being easygoing, nor am I being generous to others, nor do I care about the lives of the soldiers. If necessary, you can contact me at any time, and I will be the first representative to meet with the aliens. It's more than 10 kilometers away, and I will be there in 20 minutes. Yan Xiaoxin's face was solemn at this time, and the temperament of a Chinese soldier was obvious. He saluted Lin Li. Captain Lin, the task is handed over to me, Yan, and I guarantee that there will be no mistakes. If the two parties must meet, there is no need to trouble you. I will go to hand it over in person. Please rest assured. Command Center. Lin Li stared at this resolute man, was silent for a long time, and returned the salute solemnly. Everything is left to you. Yan Xiaoxin put down his hand, took a step back, and nodded to Manning and others beside Lin Li one by one. In the crowd, Wang Qiang stood on tiptoe and waved to him vigorously. Captain Yan, be careful on the way. Yan Xiaoxin gave the little girl a thumbs up, turned around and trotted a few steps, and nimbly jumped onto an armored vehicle. Everyone, target, the terraced field back slope 4 kilometers outside the city. Set off, rumble, at the command, 16 main battle tanks, 37 armored vehicles, and dozens of military off-road vehicles roared at the same time. The rear wheels of the mechanical beasts were deeply embedded in the land, raising gusts of sand and dust wantonly, and then roared and galloped away. Lin Li and others stood in place and saluted until the armored regiment completely disappeared from sight. At the same time, in the alien city 18 kilometers away from the camp, Julian was assigned to a group of 7 or 8 civilians under the arrangement of a grassroots team leader of the city defense force. Although he could not understand the language of the alien world, he could judge it based on the team leader's gestures. The main task of their group was to be responsible for sorting and transporting various throwing objects. For example, stones of various shapes, wooden strips covered with sharp spikes, arrows with unknown paint, etc. Of course, the raw materials for boiling gold juice are also indispensable. At this moment, the walls of the city have long been covered with arrays composed of talisman paper and array. These two words are temporarily given by the command. After all, although there is no extraordinary power on the earth, talismans and arrays are not uncommon. These arrays look mysterious and unusual. From a distance, there are constantly various colors of light on the arrays flashing along the mysterious lines, which can be said to be very attractive. Taking the opportunity of transporting supplies, Julian carefully counted them. There are more than 70 arrays on the 4 walls of the city, among which the south wall, that is, the one with the largest number of arrays at the entrance of the city gate. The number of arrays arranged on the south wall has exceeded 30, and one can be seen every 100 meters on average. There are a large number of soldiers on duty around these arrays, and some of them even have extraordinary people who have been seen before. For example, the 3 old men that Julian had seen in the mansion were now sitting in a huge green formation, chanting some mysterious spells. At the request of the headquarters, Julian once pretended to be transporting materials for defending the city and tried to get close to a formation to see if he could collect some information at close range. But before he got 10 meters closer to the edge of the formation, a sergeant with a serious face stopped him. Perhaps because the enemy was a strange beast, The sergeant did not think that Julian might be a spy and simply scolded him. Especially after learning that Julian was a deaf mute, the sergeant's attitude softened a bit and he communicated with him in sign language as follows. The sergeant tapped the floor, referring to here. He pointed to the materials behind Julian's supplies. He shook his hand no. Julian still held a glimmer of hope, pretending to be stupid and using sign language to indicate, will the supplies be okay? The sergeant was very determined, still tapping the floor, materials, and shaking his hand. The supplies are really not okay. Julian had to sigh in his heart, and hurriedly left with a look of realization and gratitude. After returning to the temporary workstation, he was about to carry a few more pieces of wood to the front of the city wall, when he was suddenly stopped by the squad leader who temporarily led him. Perhaps he remembered Julian's identity as a mute. The squad leader didn't say much, but handed him a long knife, pointed outside the city, and made a chopping gesture. The meaning was obvious: follow me to kill the enemy later. Julian subconsciously took the long knife, and after coming to his senses, he thought of something and quickly glanced around. Sure enough, at this time, most of the men on the city wall were assigned one or more weapons like him. As the war is approaching, at this moment, the most realistic life on the city wall can be said to be performed. For example, 7 or 8 meters away from Julian, there was a big man with a curly beard looking at the south with a ferocious face. He held a shovel in his hand, his sleeves rolled up high, and muttered something that Julian could not understand but could guess the meaning of. But whenever he looked at a strong woman who was boiling golden juice on the city wall, the fierceness in his eyes would be replaced by deep tenderness in an instant. Julian also noticed a scholar. The scholar looked weak and powerless, standing by the city wall with trembling legs and a pale face. The knife in his hand kept making clanging sounds when it came into contact with the city wall because of the trembling of his body. It can be seen that this is a student from the academy who has never been on the battlefield. But just when Julian thought he was about to collapse to the ground in fear, the scholar suddenly lowered his head, glanced at the pair of cloth shoes on his feet that seemed to be newly bought, and turned around to stare at a certain direction in the city. Immediately, his weak body seemed to burst out with unparalleled strength. He stood up tall, his face was pale and rosy, his right hand tightly grasped the hilt, and the trembling tip of the knife suddenly became quiet. There were many people on the city wall, and the big man and the scholar were just 2 insignificant people among them. These people were tall and short, fat and thin, and their clothes were different. There were cotton and linen clothes, as well as silk and satin. It can be seen that the class or living standards of these people in the city were not completely equal. But at this moment, whether these proletarian civilians or wealthy merchants, they all stood on the city wall together. In order to defend their homes and to protect certain fetters, they did their best. The appearance of all living beings, isn't it the love of all living beings? As time passed bit by bit, the atmosphere of the entire city wall, no, the entire city became more and more solemn. About an hour later, boom boom, suddenly, a dull trampling sound came from the far distance. Along with the trampling sound, there was also a thick cloud of dust raised by the running of strange beasts. The beast tide is coming. Chapter 23 The extraordinary battle begins. The billowing smoke and dust accompanied by the galloping of thousands of strange beasts swept towards the entrance of the city wall. As Yan Xiaoxin said before, the beast tide had been divided into 2 during the march. Each was led by several commander-level beasts and rushed to the south and west sides of the city gate respectively. During the charge of one of the square formations, a commander-level giant snake suddenly raised its head and hissed. Thousands of strange beasts behind them seemed to have received some instructions, and they also raised their heads to the sky and howled at the same time. With this long howl, the wind and sand between heaven and earth suddenly gathered rapidly, and in a few breaths, a terrifying smoke and sand giant mouth full of sharp fangs was formed. This giant mouth seemed to devour everything, with an extremely primitive wild murderous aura, and rushed straight to the city gate with a sharp howl. At the same time, on the south wall, a military commander standing at the front suddenly raised the flag and roared a syllable. Swish, all the soldiers stepped forward at the same time, their armor made a crisp sound, and they raised their spears and pointed them directly at the beast tide in front of them. The commander waved the flag again. Hey! Thousands of soldiers roared at the same time, their blood boiling, and several formations on the city lit up at the same time. With the concentration of the soldiers' momentum and the increase of the formation, a silver spear suddenly appeared in the sky. The flag waved for the 3rd time. The soldiers held their breath and took another step forward, stamping hard with the spears in their hands. The phantom in the sky seemed to have received an order, and rushed straight to the huge mouth of smoke and sand with an unparalleled aura. Bang! The spear and the huge mouth collided fiercely. The spear tip was broken, and the huge mouth was pierced through, and then the two exploded at the same time, turning into spots of light and dissipating. On the city wall, several formations suddenly became dim, and hundreds of soldiers were shocked and took several steps back. In the beast tide, dozens of black giant snakes suddenly lost their breath and fell to the ground twitching. Then they were trampled into bloody mud by the galloping friendly beasts. The first round of confrontation ended in a draw. At the same time, 4 kilometers outside the city, behind the shady slope of the terraced fields, Yan Xiaoxin put down the telescope and asked the person in charge of the information squadron directly under the regiment beside him, "Have the images of the spear phantom and the wind and sand giant mouth been recorded in the X system? This should be one of the strongest group attack methods of both sides, which is very valuable for reference. Now the beast tide is about 1 kilometer away from the city, and it will take about 3 or 4 minutes to reach the city gate. Can we analyze some data during this time?" The person in charge pointed to several technicians outside the tent, whose fingers were jumping on the keyboard quickly. "Captain, the images have been successfully recorded, and Xiao Feng and others are building a model. Thanks to Colonel Lin for bringing a micro-supercomputer this time, otherwise it would take us at least half an hour to get the results with just one X system." The chief of staff scratched his head and asked curiously. The 2 groups of phantoms exploded in the air and did not destroy any entities. Can their power be calculated? The person in charge of the information squadron explained. Although the phantoms did not damage the entities, we recorded the time from their formation to the impact. And after the 2 phantoms exploded in the air, the shock wave affected a large amount of sand and trees on the ground. We only need to capture 6 clear images of branch bending, deduct the wind force factor of the same period from the technical department, and we can deduce the curvature function of the 6 shock waves. Then use Wechit supercomputing to cross-analyze these 6 curvature functions, and further deduce the complete multi-axis distance attenuation formula, which can easily restore the power of the 2 phantoms when they exploded. While several people were talking, the technicians outside the tent suddenly stood up and hurried over. "Report, the analysis results are out." Yan Xiaoxin saluted him back. "Comrade Xia Feng, you have worked hard. Time is urgent, just tell me the data directly." Xia Feng stood up and said quickly, "The explosion energy of the 2 phantoms is about 6,800 kilojoules, which is medium in explosion energy, but the mechanical energy generated is very high. The power is about equivalent to 3 155mm howitzers exploding at the same time, with an absolute killing radius of about 45 meters and an effective killing radius of about 100 meters. Yan Xiaoxin put his hand on his chin thoughtfully. "After all, it is a military formation of thousands of people and thousands of alien beasts. It is normal to have such power. If our troops throw a fragmentation grenade in one direction, the power will not be small." The beast tide did not dare to waste the smoke and sand giant mouth on Captain Yao and his men, which shows that this method consumes a lot of energy. I guess it is the same for the city. There are only 70 or 80 formations in total, and this move has scrapped 1/10 of them. The remaining ones can't all be attack formations, right? Counting both ends, the city and the beast tide can only launch 1 or 2 waves of such attacks at most. This is good, as we have found out a trump card of both sides. The chief of staff nodded and was about to say something when a clerk who was monitoring the war situation suddenly shouted, "Report, the second round of attack and defense has begun." 4 kilometers away from Yan Xiaoxin's temporary camp, the beast tide, divided into 2 groups, was like 2 big hands, tightly controlling the city from the west and south. When the beast tide was about 50 meters away from the city, on the south wall, among the 3 old men who had been sitting with their eyes closed, the one on the far left suddenly opened his eyes. He gave a light shout and formed a seal with his hands. A red light leaped out from his index finger and instantly turned into a scarlet spiritual bird. The spiritual bird dragged a long flame and quickly touched the 4 walls like a peck. Wherever it passed, all the formations seemed to be given life and glowed brightly. The formations intertwined one after another and finally turned into a light curtain, covering the entire city tightly. Dozens of alien beasts serving as the vanguard had no time to retract their feet and crashed into the light curtain. The light curtain did not move at all, but these alien beasts were severely repelled. Half of them were trampled into meat paste by friendly forces like the black snakes before. But no one, whether it was the aliens in the city or the members of the Xinhao team behind the camp and the terraced fields, relaxed because of this. The number of beasts in the tide is extremely large. All the beasts add up to at least 8,000. Considering the visual error, it is not impossible to exceed 10,000. The casualties of more than 50 before and after are not a big deal for the beasts. This light curtain is probably the biggest reliance of the city. Once the light curtain is breached, the city defenders will be attacked by a group of beasts. If these beasts are allowed to attack the city wall, the city will face a fierce melee of one person against two beasts. The most numerous in the beast tide are black snakes. This kind of snake is generally 4 or 5 meters long and has obvious toxicity. Facing this kind of giant snake, let alone one person fighting 2, 5 ordinary people fighting 1 are likely to be wiped out. Therefore, once the beasts climb the city for a melee, it basically means that the city is not far from being destroyed and people are killed. After the light curtain appeared, the 8 commander-level beasts looked at each other and roared at their men. Soon, the 2 groups of beasts began to change their formations. About 1,000 beasts were sent out to try to harass the other 2 sides of the city wall. At the same time, all the black giant snakes retreated, and the giant monsters and 2-headed bulls pushed forward. During the period when the beasts changed their formations, more than 20 extraordinary people in the city also walked to the front of the city wall and waited for battle. The 2 sides confronted each other for about half a minute, and the largest scaled giant snake spit out its snake tongue. Hiss! The next second, hundreds of 2-headed bulls lowered their heads, revealing their sharp horns, and rushed towards the light curtain fiercely. Chapter 24, Such a Horror, the Great Demon of Pterosaur Bloodline. Following the command of the scaly giant snake, hundreds of 2-headed bulls rushed towards the light curtain in both directions. The sharp horns of these 2-headed bulls emitted a mysterious light of pale yellow. Judging from their actions, the 2-headed bull race seemed to have some special ability to attack. Bang! After the first round of impact, the light curtain was intact. But Julian on the city noticed that the light of several formations around seemed to be dimmed a little. It can be seen. Although the impact of the cattle herd had limited effect, it still caused a certain degree of damage to the formation. Seeing that the cattle herd was about to launch a second charge, many extraordinary people on the city wall looked at each other and took action. For a while, all kinds of magic weapons appeared. There was a red silk flying out of the sleeve of a young woman and slid down. It swept through the beast tide lightly and silkily, instantly annihilating several strange beasts. An old woman sacrificed a jade bracelet, which was suspended above the beast tide, constantly emitting wisps of blurred colorful divine light. All the beasts covered by the light will become insane and mad in less than a moment, roaring and attacking the friendly forces around them. There was also a middle-aged man with dancing hair, a heroic and majestic figure. He controlled a giant tripod to rise and fall among the beasts. Under the control of the giant tripod, a large number of beasts were either dead or injured. In addition, Julian also saw bamboo flutes, iron chains and even a coffin, which were constantly running in and out of the battlefield under the control of the extraordinary. But these magic weapons only had time to show their power for 2 or 3 rounds, and the 8 commander-level beasts attacked together. The giant monster commander with sharp horns on his head roared and grabbed Hongling with an amazing speed that was completely contrary to his body size. Then he pulled it hard, and Hongling was instantly torn into 2 pieces. A mark on the young woman's forehead on the city wall shattered, and she suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood, and the whole person suddenly became listless. Beside the giant monster, a 2-headed bull of the commander level also let out a low moo. A visible wave spread out, slowly but accurately enveloping the jade bracelet. The suspended jade bracelet only lasted 2 breaths before it lost its brilliance, fell from a height of tens of meters to the ground, and broke into several pieces. The same was true in many other locations. Under the attack of the 8 commander-level beasts, most of the magic weapons offered by the extraordinary people were immediately ineffective. Taking this opportunity, the herd of cattle gathered again and launched another charge. Bang! With this collision, 2 formations were completely dimmed. The bites on the talisman paper collapsed one after another, turning into dust and dissipating in the air. At this moment, the 3 old men sitting in the center seemed to have communicated well and opened their eyes at the same time. A spell was cast, and the sword instantly floated in the air. On the battlefield, the largest scaled giant snake in the system hissed when it saw this, and the order was issued, and all the beasts suddenly quieted down. The next moment, except for the one-horned giant monster that was too large, the other 7 commander-level beasts floated up at the same time, confronting the 3 sword-controlling extraordinary people at a height of 100 meters. For a moment, the alien humans in the city, the ferocious beasts on the ground, and the rabbits who were observing the battle situation on the scene through various channels. All their eyes were focused on this. The intention of the 3 sword-controlling old men was very clear, using themselves as bait to lure the enemy's top combat power out of the battlefield as much as possible. This is commonly known as king versus king. This is an extremely dangerous decision, but it is also the only choice. According to the news they received earlier, this time Yaok sent a total of 20 second-level big monsters. After breaking through a large city in the south, 8 went to the west and the other 9 went to the east. The remaining 3 rushed towards Chixin City. This was a very common route in previous years. After all, within a radius of 1,000 miles, Chixin City is not a big city, and the duration of Yaok is relatively limited, so the beast tide generally does not spend much time on such small places in the corners. The purpose of sending several second-level monsters to attack the city was not so much to break the city and eat people, but to contain the monks in the city and prevent them from having time to support other cities. According to the original plan of the 3 people, with their foundation building cultivation and the strengthening effect of the city defense formation, it should be no problem to keep the city gate intact. After all, monsters have attacked more than once or twice in previous years, and the city defense formation has never had any problems. But who would have thought that the second-level monsters that attacked this time were not 3, but 8? When did these monsters, who have always been straightforward, actually play tricks? When they got the news, the beast tide was less than 100 miles away from Qi County City. After all, although they can fly in the air, they can only fly for 20 to 30 miles. Including the time for meditation and recovery, it takes a whole day to go back and forth, and the news cannot be transmitted in real time. Note 1. Such a close distance, plus the nearby wilderness, the nearest city is 100 miles away. In this situation, not to mention the whole city, even the whole family couldn't escape. The 3 could only hastily arrange for the direct descendants of the family to flee far away, and they and most of the family members stayed in the city, making a final desperate struggle. As the elders of the family, the 3 knew that the city defense formation could not withstand the attack of more than 4 monsters. Once the formation was broken, they would not only have to face the siege of multiple second-level monsters, but also have to spare their energy to control the situation on the battlefield. The 3 people's combat power could only be 70% to 80%, and the ending was destined to be the death of the people and the destruction of the city. So the 3 of them exchanged their thoughts. Instead of shrinking in the city and dying slowly, it would be better to leave the battlefield and fight a desperate battle. As long as they could fight the 4 monsters on the opposite side at the cost of 1 person's death, then the remaining 2 people, even if they were seriously injured, could use the backhand left by their ancestors to block the remaining 4 big monsters and persist until the beast tide receded. Although this possibility is very small, it is still a possibility. At least it is better than waiting to die. The monsters are naturally very happy about this. After all, if the 3 old men insisted on retreating to defend the city, even if they finally broke through the city, the losses of their men would definitely not be small. Anyway, the people in the city below could not escape, so they worked together to kill the top combat forces in the city first, which would be much easier than attacking the city with brute force. Among them, the scaled giant snake with the highest cultivation level was so happy that its tail was almost shaking out a residual image. Just kidding, the monsters of the same realm are stronger than the practitioners. Now it is 7 to 3, plus this second-level perfect monster who is about to break through the realm is present. What can the practitioners on the opposite side use to fight? Although this scaled giant snake looks a little arrogant, it also has the capital to be arrogant. When it was promoted to the 2nd level, it accidentally awakened a wisp of the blood of a terrasser in ancient times and obtained a little terrasser inheritance. With the improvement of its realm, the scaled giant snake has recently revived some memory fragments. What impressed it the most was a sentence roared by the pterosaur strongmen in a battle tens of thousands of years ago. "We outnumber the enemy by more than 60. We only need to spread our wings and charge straight at their faces to win." That domineering tone. That majestic posture. That wild and arrogant look. It was so cool. I think the opponents of the pterosaur ancestors at that time died miserably in the end. Thinking of this, the scaly giant snake couldn't help but spit out its snake tongue in annoyance. It's a pity that his memory was too little awakened, and he didn't know what the so-called face-writing move was. But it's not a big problem. Although he didn't remember the moves, he could imitate the tone. So, this scaly giant snake restored the wild and charming posture of the pterosaur. It pointed at the three old men flying swords with its snake tail, its mouth crooked and its eyes slanted, and venom splashed. Considering the limited intelligence of the other second-level monsters, the giant snake even used more common animal language to shout at the other monsters. Today's battle is as steady as a flying dragon riding on your face. We will win. As soon as the words fell, an old man on the opposite side suddenly slashed out a sword light. The scaled giant snake quickly wiped its snake's tail, and its spirit was high. Don't move, leave it to me. I saw it leap high towards the sword light, with a momentum like a rainbow, as if it was about to break the catastrophe and turn into a dragon. Then I saw the sword light cutting tofu, silky through its body. The giant snake's stiff figure was split into two, and then snap, snap. The two pieces of flesh fell to the ground one after another. On the ground, the second-order giant monster that didn't fly into the sky wiped the snake blood on his face, looked at the snake head in front of him that was gradually losing its luster, and tilted his head. Note 1. The perspective of the alien world debuted for the first time. From now on, except for the communication between rabbits, the other alien beasts will be uniformly called monsters. Don't argue why it can only fly such a short distance, it will be explained later. Don't ask why monsters can fly helicopters and run away. The helicopter is more than 500 meters high, and monsters can only fly to a height of 100 meters. Note 2. The big guys are too awesome. I thought it would take Saturday to get 260 votes, but you guys rushed to 280 plus in a few hours. Fortunately, I didn't say that I would add more chapters if it broke 300 equals kowtow to the big guys. ORZ currently, 2 chapters will be added, 1 chapter on Sunday and 1 chapter next week. According to the 221 rule, there will be a single chapter tomorrow. Big guys with monthly tickets, please come a little more. It's 12th on the new star list, very close to the top 10. If you can rush to the top 10, the exposure will be a qualitative improvement. I really can't add more chapters during the new book period, but I can when it is on the shelves. The original plan for the day of the release was 5 chapters with 3,000 words. If you can help me get to the top 8, the 8th is on the homepage, no need to scroll down. I will release 2 extra chapters on the day of the release. 1 more chapter for each promotion, including the previous 2 chapters, up to 6 chapters. It's a big profit, isn't it? Only monthly tickets and rewards are valid for the Rising Star list. Rewards are not mandatory. Can you give me some if you have monthly tickets? Chapter 25: A Desperate Fight. A humble swordlight actually killed the most powerful monster? Instantly, the entire battlefield fell into deathly silence. After a moment, a burst of shocking cheers suddenly broke out in the city, and even the bricks on the wall were shaking. For a moment, the morale of the city side was greatly boosted. Hundreds of archers were as powerful as rainbows, shooting a round of arrows, severely injuring a large number of monsters. Many monks once again sacrificed their magic weapons and harvested a wave of monster heads. In the sky, seeing that the strongest giant snake on their side was easily killed, the other 6 monsters were also shocked. These monsters looked at each other. With expressions of fear and vigilance, they slowly gathered together, as if discussing something. Taking this opportunity, Yan Xiaoxin drank some water to moisten his throat, shook his head, and said to the chief of staff beside him, "The giant snake is really a waste of this appearance of more than 20 meters. It was cut into sashimi by a sword. It turns out that it is a weak one." The chief of staff walked to the screen and looked at the picture carefully. He asked the technician of the information squadron, "Can the picture be enlarged?" The technician thought for a few seconds and replied, "Our drone dare not get too close to the battlefield. The current picture quality can be enlarged by 1.8 times at most. If it exceeds this magnification, it will be distorted." The chief of staff waved his hand, "Then enlarge it by 1.8 times and lock on the extraordinary person who emitted the sword light." The technician fiddled with the keyboard for a few seconds, and after a few seconds, the picture began to gradually zoom in. The appearance of the extraordinary person gradually became clear: thin face, black hair and black pupils, white long beard hanging down to the chest, wearing a green robe, quite a fury-like appearance. Under the gust of wind in the air, the old man's beard and hair fluttered slightly, and his collar kept shaking with the wind. No, the chief of staff suddenly put his hands on the command desk, leaned forward, stared at the screen, and shouted to Yan Xiaoxin, "Captain, come and see." The old man's clothes are not blown by the wind. He is trembling in spasm. Yan Xiaoxin turned his body to the side, looked at the screen, and frowned. Huh? It's true. Look at his masseter and medial pterygoid muscles. These two chewing muscles are tightly stretched, which means that he is biting his teeth very hard. The blue veins on the top of his head are also exposed, and it seems that he is not in a very good condition. After Yan Xiaoxin finished speaking, he looked at the chief of staff. As old partners who have cooperated tacitly for many years, the two saw the same guess from each other's eyes. The old man in green may have paid a very huge price to cut that sword. It is not even ruled out that he may lose his combat effectiveness. In fact, this is exactly the case. What Yan Xiaoxin and others didn't understand was that according to the classification of supernatural powers in this world, this old man and the scaly giant snake were actually creatures of the same level of cultivation. If we insist on talking about combat ability, the old man in green might be a little weaker. If the two sides fought normally, the old man in green and the scaly giant snake would be on par with each other, and it would take a very long time to decide the winner. But today is different. The three cultivators are facing a very difficult situation of 3 against 7. As the person with the highest cultivation in the city, the old man in green may be able to temporarily drag 3 without losing in a short period of time. But once the time is extended, let alone not losing, even the possibility of surviving is extremely slim. Even if the old man in green successfully escaped from the siege, it would still not change the situation of today's battle. If he really wanted to escape alone, he would not have defended the city until now, and there would be plenty of opportunities to run away. So the only way is to take a different approach and fight to the death. There is a slight possibility of winning, a chance of survival. In the sword that the old man in green slashed, he used his strongest magical power, sacrificed part of his lifespan, risked his life, and killed the strongest demon snake with one move. But he also paid a huge price. This kind of magical power to kill monsters of the same level naturally consumes a lot of energy. Otherwise, if it was a normal battle, how could it be possible to kill creatures of the same level in one move? If the snake demon resisted for 2 more breaths, the old man in green would be the one to die. At this time, the old man in green had a disordered breath. Not to mention dragging 3, at most he could restrain 1 demon beast, and the time could not be too long. The 6 demon beasts gathered on the other side seemed to realize this, and a trace of cruelty gradually appeared in their eyes. Seeing this, the old man in green adjusted his breathing, lowered his eyebrows, and suddenly shouted in a low voice, "Fire!" The other 2 old men on the side seemed to have been prepared for a long time. Hearing this, they did not hesitate and acted decisively. I saw a long rainbow flying out of each of their sleeves, like 2 bright stars passing through the abyss, vowing to smash the darkness. The 2 long rainbows were clearly heading for the 2-headed bull with the smallest body and the weakest cultivation. Kill the strongest first, then the weakest. This was the plan made by the 3 people. The 2 long rainbows were actually 2 extremely precious talismans, which were passed down from the founding ancestor of the Chengyi old man's family. Originally, there were 3 of each. When the 3 talismans were used together, they could even wipe out a perfect second-level demon. This was one of the deepest foundations of the entire family. Unfortunately, in a battle decades ago, one of the Chengyi old man's uncles used a talisman, resulting in only 2 talismans remaining. Although these 2 talismans were still powerful, they could only kill relatively ordinary second-level demon plants. The 2 talismans were very fast, and 2 flashes of light flashed in the air, covering the 2-headed bull from each side, and it had no time to dodge. After a moment, a shrill scream resounded through the sky. A flash of fire rushed up between heaven and earth, and then went out. The talismans and the bull monsters all dissipated, turning into light rain and ash. 7 second-level monsters, now 2 of them died in an instant. This is undoubtedly a shocking scene. But on the other hand, this also means that the 3 old men have revealed all their trump cards, and what remains is a tragic and desperate fight. The 5 remaining monsters looked at each other, communicated with each other through voice transmission, and no longer hesitated, roaring and flying towards the 3 monks. A 2-headed bull faced a black-robed old man with the lowest cultivation level, and the other 2 bull monsters restrained the purple-robed goatbeard on the right. The remaining 2 giant snakes, however, went straight to the green-clothed old man. The monster's purpose is very clear: kill the green-clothed old man first. The green-clothed old man's breath is disordered now, and his combat power is only 20% to 30%, which is not a threat at all. As long as he can be killed, this battle can basically be concluded. The green-clothed old man was mentally prepared for this. The second-level monsters are not fools, and they can naturally distinguish the situation and make judgments. He shouted the word kill softly, and a mirror appeared in his hand. His brows were raised, and he fought with all his might. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.